Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the City of Palm Coast City Council Workshop. Today is Tuesday, September 23rd, 2025. It is 9 a.m. We are in the John Netz Community Wing of City Hall. I'm calling this meeting to order. If you could, please silence your devices if you have any. And please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a short moment of silence. I pledge allegiance
to the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You can please be seated. Ms. Allison, call the roll, please.
Mayor Norris.
Here.
Vice Mayor Panieri.
Present.
Councilmember Gambaro.
Here.
Councilmember Miller.
Here.
And Councilmember Sullivan.
Here.
All members are present.
Thank you, ma'am. We're going to begin today's proceedings with public participation. If the item is on the agenda, please refrain until that item is brought up on the agenda, and we'll slate 30 minutes for this public participation. If you have comments, please come forward. Yes, ma'am. Ms. Chantel.
Good morning. Chantal Preninger. I'd like to bring three things. I'd like to know if there's an update on the forensic audit. I'd like to know if there's an update on the possible water consumption as to recycle water for the Google data. And I also want to recall an incident I had this week while driving my car. That is to say that the bicycle and e-bike issue is more complex than even regulation can put. I was driving on Old Kings Road, and there was a person who was riding a bicycle that I didn't see until I got pretty close, because he was wearing some clothes that would match blend in the environment. And by the time I got closer, there was a double line on my left, and I could not really pass him, and also the traffic coming on the other side. And just as I was getting close to him, a car on the back, they used their horn, and the guy on his bike waved and went on the grass. And he was clearly in distress. I could not stop because the car behind me I felt like I was pushed. And farther at the traffic light, I opened my window, and at that car, the lady opened her window too, and she got upset at me because I didn't pass him. I could not pass him, but when she used her horn, it scared the guy, and she said all what was on his bike fell. And I was not in a position where I could stop my car to check on him because she was following and so close to me. So if we add some regulations for the e-bike and bike, maybe we can suggest that people who ride their bike have some clothing that are shown, like bright colors or something, to reduce the possible incident. I felt quite bad about it because there was nothing I could do, but I wanted to bring that story anyway.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Hi, good morning. My name's Adam LaDuca.
You can lean it up, sir.
I kind of piggybacking on what she said, ironically. There's a lot of people in the city here, obviously, that have an opinion about traffic. And as the city grows, there's a lot of, I think, people that aren't really informed on processes, how to do things regarding traffic. I live in a CDD, and one of the problems that we're facing is trying to get the speed limit lowered within the community. So my question to council would be, what are the processes for maintaining roads, stormwater, things like that within a CDD? Is that a CDD issue? Or is it a city issue? And what is sort of the petitioning process to get those things changed? If, for example, we need to lower the speed limit.
Thank you, sir. We'll follow up. If you've never been to a city council meeting, we'll follow up at the end. Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, Jeannie Duarte. A few things here. The data center will strain infrastructure, our ecosystem, economy, and public health. 2, our reclaimed water. If you inject reclaimed water into our aquifers, remember, we cannot remove forever chemicals or pharmaceuticals such as birth control pills. Our irrigation, 3, our irrigation meters. Residents with unused irrigation meters are still charged $11.98 per month fees. We had ours removed. However, if you have yours removed, they will let you know that it'll be over $1,000 to reinstall. 4, at 10:30 last night, I received a text asking why I wasn't at the charter review meeting last night. When was the public notice for this meeting? When was it placed on the September calendar? The public was only informed of the September 29th workshop labeled as the first, when in fact a charter review meeting took place last night. This is misleading information, creating public confusion, denied residents of a fair chance to participate, undermined public trust. This is a clear violation of Florida Sunshine Law, the Florida Statute 286.011, and the constitutional rights of open access, Article 1, Section 24. Further, the scheduled October, November, and December meetings do not yet appear on the city official calendar. Why not? I have those if you need copies of it. Also, next, the evidence has been submitted against the charter review member who was mentioned last week, and there is a request for his immediate removal, as well as to dissolve the current charter review committee to conduct a proper review in 2028 as outlined in the city charter. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, sir, Mr. Carr.
Steve Carr, Palm Coast. I want to thank the city for taking the sewer system on Florida Park Drive really serious and have been doing a lot of work over there. And so far, it has resolved the issue with my house. And I just want to give Christopher Crawford a real thanks, because he stopped by my house to explain to me what was going on and what they had found. And it makes you really appreciate the city more when there's open communication that way. I just want to say thanks.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Yes, Mr. Webb.
Mark Webb, Palm Coast. A couple quick things. First, I would like to thank Mr. Gambaro for his open house, public, transparent meeting he had last week. Sadly, like the rest of you have experienced, the attendance was poor, but I think the interaction, the fairing, and his openness to be available and to talk to the citizens was very impressive. Secondly, to answer Jeannie's issue, I was at the meeting last night. The only other people that were there were the alternates. The conversation by the committee members, it was clear that the meeting last night was very hastily put together and poorly attended and poorly announced to the citizens. But I recorded, as I said I would, the entire presentation over 3 hours, and I will be making it available on my channel on YouTube to try to help and let the citizens know the importance of what this review is happening. Further, the committee had decided and recommended that they're adding 5 additional workshop meetings twice a month in this room through the end of December. They are going line by line through this city charter, looking for ways to improve and to discuss with the citizens. The other thing they noted was our counselor was not present It was sorely missed because many of the legal questions that were coming up, none of us could answer. So in a unanimous request by the committee, they're asking that our city attorney be present for every one of those workshops moving forward. This committee is taking this action very serious, and I want to help and inform the citizens of how critical this charter is and how impactful it could be based on the conversations that are going on. So it was a pleasure to record it. It was long, very informative, and I desperately hope that we at the city do better at letting the citizens know what is happening with their charter. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else for public comment? Seeing no one come forward, we'll close public comment and bring it back to the dais. City Manager, you got any follow-ups?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. We will get Ms. Chantel an update on the data center. As far as the forensic audit, City Council does an audit every year per our guidelines and under state statute. And then in recent conversations, the Mayor and City Council directed us to do a risk and efficiency assessment, and it's here on the agenda to be presented today. So that is the direction that was given to staff of what they wanted to do as those next steps. We will follow up with Ms. Duarte and her concerns on the data center. And thank you, Mr. Carr, for your compliments of Mr. Crawford. He is an excellent employee delivering our mission. So thank you for that appreciation. Mr. DeLuca, if you don't mind, just we'll help you in the back answer your questions about a CDD. Any of our directors back there can answer some of your questions. And then I'm not sure of the issues regarding the publicly noticed meeting for the charter review. It's my understanding it was on our website. It was noticed. If you recall, this came as direction from City Council at a previous meeting, so it was kind of a fast turnaround. So the members were notified as well as the alternates, and it was publicly noticed on our website, but I can look into that further, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Was Mr. Webb correct when he said the only people that attended that charter review were alternates?
No,
Happen to know?
the members were present.
Okay, all right, thank you. I thought he said just the alternates attended. I was like, there's something wrong with that. Anything else, City Manager?
No, sir.
Yep. Most CDDs, they control the speed limits and stuff in their own community. So if they want to lower, as far as I know, they want to lower the speed limit, they're more than welcome to. It's nothing to do with the city. That's a separate governing body that controls those CDDs. Any of the city council have anything? You got anything? Nothing. Anybody? No. Okay, we'll move on. I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Pontier, you got anything?
I do, Mayor. Thank you.
Go ahead. Vice Mayor, go ahead if you have any comments.
No, Mayor, I said I do not. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, we're going to move on to item E, presentations. The first one is going to be the entity-wide risk assessment. City Manager?
Yes, thank you, Mayor, City Council. Just answering some of public comment also gave a good introduction and segue into this presentation. City Council, you directed staff to, and you selected Plant Moran to conduct an entity-wide risk assessment for the city. So they are here to present their final results. And as well, in your backup agenda was the full report, and we're happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, have we received any feedback from the state regarding the statewide DOGE? Anything from them?
No, sir.
All right, thank you. Yes, go right ahead.
So I actually went to, at the Florida League of Cities, they had the head of DOGE come and speak. And so the feeling that I got from him was that it's unlikely that we will receive, as a smaller city, a individualized audit. What they'll do is basically conglomerate all the results data-wise throughout the state and kind of give rankings and where everybody stands in comparison to each other in terms of key metrics like tax revenue versus population growth, things like that
Financial
over time.
stability.
Correct. Full-time employees as a ratio to population, things like that they see as key metrics in efficiency. So it's likely that we won't. They didn't say no. They said we're going to continue to do audits, but they were hitting like Jacksonville, Orlando, like very large cities to try to find efficiency. So I don't know if they're going to go to all 311 cities.
Thank you. Yes.
All right. Good morning, Mayor, City Council. Just to recap what Lauren said, on June 17th, Council approved a master services agreement with Plant Moran for an entity-wide risk assessment. Plant Moran conducted an entity-wide risk assessment to help the city identify and prioritize the critical operational, financial, compliance, and strategic risk. Departmental interviews across the city have been successfully completed, and the insights obtained through these sessions have been systematically analyzed and assessed. Today, the detailed report, including results and recommended actions, will be presented by Plant Moran Project Manager Brianna Solario, with her is his partner, Matt Bowden. Floor is yours.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, and thank you for allowing us the opportunity to present the summarized results of our enterprise risk assessment. We're going to walk you through a presentation that we have. It's summarized from the detailed report that we also provided the City Council. So today we'll walk you through our project methodology, the steps we took to perform the risk assessment, take you through the results in various forms, both just in terms of risk visualizations and some explanatory detail around risks and mitigating action plans, some draft monitoring plans that we've worked with the city to communicate and put in place. And then, of course, we're open to questions and comments from the council and the public. Just for a quick introduction to the team here, as Tim said, I'm Matt Bowden. I'm the engagement partner for this project. Been with the firm for 20 years, and I focus completely on risk assessments, and I'm our practice's public sector leader. Not with us today are Noah Nicklin and Allie Houston. They supported us on the engagement. Noah from a technology standpoint, particularly during our initial risk assessment workshop, helping us with some behind-the-scenes survey operations and helping with some of our tech. And then Allie helping Brianna out here in the field with some interviews during that phase of the project. And I'm going to go ahead and hand it to Brianna to introduce herself and begin our walkthrough of the presentation summary.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Brianna Solorio. I'm a manager in our Risk and Accounting Advisory Services practice, and I, too, have fully focused my career on both risk management for public sector clients. And I served as the project manager for this engagement. First, we'll walk through the project methodology, and we wanted to share why we conduct the assessment, what the benefit and the outcomes were for the city. So first, as a result of this assessment, we developed a comprehensive portfolio view of the risks so then city leaders can see the top risks all in one place. This helps understand how to allocate resources across departments and priorities. And additionally, an outcome of this assessment is that the city can better anticipate risks to minimize losses, incidents, or service failures by proactively thinking through those risks and having a plan in place should those occur. And along those same lines, also helps increase resiliency and prepare for unexpected disasters. Again, so are thinking about the risks, what controls are in place to address those risks, and thinking about what else can be done to further manage the city's risks. Also helps establish a strong risk culture. Want risk management to be a part of everyone's job, and also to make sure that risks are being discussed openly in the city. Also helps the city pursue opportunities in accordance with the risk appetite. So by knowing what level of risk is acceptable to undertake, then can pursue new initiatives while still keeping risk in check. And then lastly, this process itself improves communication across departments, builds trust, and gets everyone working together to address the city's risks. And we had 3 primary objectives out of this project. So first, we wanted to perform the risk assessment to identify the city's highest priority strategic, operational, financial, and compliance risks. And then we documented all the activities the city has in place to address the risks, also identified actions that are in progress of implementation, and then we analyzed that to determine where the city can and should implement additional actions to continue to strengthen risk management activities. And then lastly, part of this is developing ongoing monitoring activities. So this is sustainable for the city to report on and manage going forward, and creating a process that can be reperformed rather than it being kind of a one-time exercise. And then to provide some additional context of how we perform this assessment, we kicked it off by providing training to city staff that was involved in the assessment. We provided an overview of key concepts of risk management, what our methodology was for the project, and what could be expected of them. We also conducted research on the city to develop a preliminary risk listing and provided that to city leadership for their input on the risks to make sure we had a comprehensive and accurate listing. And then we also developed rating criteria for the city to standardize how risks were assessed in this engagement. We moved on to completing a risk workshop with department directors and deputy directors. And during that workshop, we discussed the risks that were top of mind for city leadership. We discussed risk owners who should be accountable for overseeing each of the risks. And we also discussed prioritization of risks and rated the strength of the mitigating activities and internal controls the city currently has in place. And then we dove deeper into each risk during the interviews with each department. And we discussed issues that the departments are experiencing, concerns, obtained further information on current controls and in-progress activities, opportunities that they saw for improvement in their own processes, and we also discussed the appetite for taking on risk. And then analyze the information we collected to develop a listing of what's included in the report, current mitigating activities, recommended action plans, and we did solicit feedback from department directors as well on the report to confirm that what we had in the report was accurate. And next, as I mentioned, we did develop a rating criteria, so wanted to provide an overview of what this looks like and what it meant for the assessment. So we first began by assessing inherent risk with the criteria, and this reflects the natural level of risk that exists in the city's operating environment. So this is before considering those mitigating efforts, the activities that the city has in place to address each of the risks. And inherent risk is made up of impact and likelihood. Impact asks the question, if this risk event occurred, what would the consequences be for the city? So we evaluated different impacts across the financial, operational, strategic, and compliance dimensions on a 5-point scale. And then next, we also assessed likelihood, which asks how probable is the risk event of occurring if preventative measures are not in place. So this was also rated on a 5-point scale and looking at it for both a historical perspective, how often could this have occurred in the past, and then how often do we anticipate it could occur in the future. And next, we also had rating criteria around the strength of internal controls that are in place, which was rated during the workshop with department directors and deputy directors. Their ratings then helped us assess the level of residual risk, which then reduces the risk down and helps us arrive at the level of risk that is left after considering those mitigating activities. And then lastly, we had rating criteria around risk appetite, which is the level of risk that the city is willing to accept in pursuit of its strategic goals. So through interviews, we explored whether the city tends to be risk cautious or more accepting across each of the risk categories that we looked at. And that helped us flag areas where residual risk may exceed acceptable levels. Those criteria gave us a structured and consistent approach to score each risk, and these ratings are reflected in the visuals that we will walk through in a few minutes. Okay, and this reflects the risk listing that we developed through the assessment. So there were 4 categories: operational, financial, and strategic and compliance risk. Operational risk represents those risks in day-to-day operations of the city. Financial risks are those around financial management and economic circumstances. Strategic risk are the high-level challenges to executing and achieving city strategy. And then compliance risks are those risks that deal with adherence to laws, regulations, and grant requirements.
Ma'am, do you guys employ or implore subject matter experts during these operational? So for instance, go back to that last slide. When you're going through operational, so for public service, did you have someone on staff that is considered a subject matter expert?
We do consult with other partners and professionals at the firm that have additional experience with matters that are within scope of our assessment. Yes.
So in our utilities, you have someone that knows the business.
We do have someone on staff that does understand both utility operations and utility billing.
Okay, thank you. You can continue.
Now we'll go into the assessment results. To set the stage for the results of the assessment, we wanted to share a few overarching themes that emerged through our discussions with the city, came up frequently across departments. These are not things that are necessarily linked one-to-one with the top risks that were identified in the assessment, but rather provides a backdrop of the city's risk profile. So we included 2 strengths of the city that we noted, and then we'll finish out with the 3 challenges that we noted. So first, through our assessment, we noted that the city fosters a collaborative organizational culture with strong interdepartmental communications and mutual support. And this culture is reinforced by leadership's tone at the top, helps departments solve problems together and respond cohesively to challenges that are faced. And next, we noted that city staff show a proactive approach to improving processes and internal controls. Through our assessment, there were multiple times in conversation where we had discussed actions that were taken by the city in the past 2 years, past year, are currently in progress, where they identified inefficiencies, things that could be improved in their processes or control gaps, and took action then to begin to improve. So this reflects a culture to us that embraces innovation and change. And for the first challenge that we noted, was around technology. There are technology systems in the city that have limitations leading staff to performing manual workarounds, and these gaps do reflect decreased efficiency in some instances and increases the risk of error, especially where manual processes may be required.
Can you give me an example of that?
Yes. So one instance would be in utilities, around utility billing. We had heard a few comments around workflows just not being efficiently set up to move a work order through the process, which just requires additional effort, time to follow up and make sure that work order gets communicated to that next person in the step. And additionally, around utility billing, there are just some manual workarounds that team has in place where they have to delay certain activities just to make sure billing is accurate, or they have to refer back to paper work orders just to double check and make sure that start service, stop service is being accurately reflected in billing.
What about other systems? Are there any more examples?
Yes. So we also noted some inefficiencies around performance evaluations in the Human Resources Department. Currently, there's manual tracking around evaluations, which then has to be reconciled back to the Munis system. And then there's also some issues with notifications for those performance evaluations. The system is currently not configured to be able to push those notifications out. And then go ahead.
I'm sorry, what about our major systems in utilities as far as water treatment, wastewater treatment, any of those? Is there any technology gaps there?
We did not note any technology gaps with those systems. It was primarily around, most of the challenges that we heard were around departments that use Munis, the ERP system.
Continue, I'm sorry.
Thank you for your question. Okay, and next up, terms of challenges faced, we noted that recruiting or retaining specialized talent can remain a challenge, especially around engineers or utility technicians. Those positions do remain difficult to fill, which can lead to workload strain on staff and can lead to potential service impacts if vacancies remain. And then lastly, we noted infrastructure strain. There's growing and aging infrastructure across the city. Rapid development is testing the capacity of roads and utilities. So there's concern that we heard around the funding and staffing being able to keep pace with the city's infrastructure needs.
Mayor, may I jump in, please?
Yes, go right ahead.
Good morning. I just had a question on number 4, the staffing challenges.
Yes.
Did you all ascertain a few of the top reasons why we are having staffing challenges?
We did anecdotally, but part of what our recommendations is to conduct an assessment over the city's current compensation structure and performance management process to do a deeper dive into that.
So yeah, just to add to that, root cause, which would point to the recommendation for that additional assessment would be compensation structure, and then of course just geographic location, just attractiveness to talent, et cetera.
Okay, thank you. And City Manager, we're already currently undergoing that, correct?
It's in the fiscal year 26 budget. So once the budget has been approved, then we will solicit a consultant to help us with that process.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And then we will move on next to our risk assessment visualizations. So this is the heat map of the inherent risks that we plotted in this assessment. All 18 risks identified are here on this impact and likelihood matrix. The y-axis is impact, which is lower at the bottom and higher at the top. And then the x-axis is likelihood, which is lower towards the left and higher towards the right. And risks near the top right corner in the orange area are inherently high, so they could have a major impact and are likely without considering the city's current controls that are in place. And then risks towards the bottom left corner are inherently lower with a less significant impact and lower likelihood. So,
what was the criteria for political climate? What's the issue there?
yeah, I think just the frequency in which there can be changes between council, changes in council. That is something that can happen with each election cycle. And then naturally, as being a city government, that is something that we do typically see is elevated.
Okay, what about asset management?
Right. Asset management has a higher inherent risk, primarily because of the city's infrastructure. Infrastructure is baked into that asset management risk.
Go right ahead, Councilman.
On public services is relatively high on risk. You did take into consideration that when you talked about public services, do you include social services? Because there is a difference between what the city can do and what the county does. So I just was wondering, when you looked at public services and you gave it a relatively high risk, what were the problems there?
So public services includes those actions in how the city is serving its citizens, so utilities, stormwater, roads, that sort of thing. It does not include social services provided by the county.
I just want to make sure that.
Yes.
One other thing I may add to this is just one dimension. This is the inherent level of risks before we take into account anything that the city does to manage down that risk. If it's all right, I'm going to skip ahead to the next slide that actually pulls in other factors. I know just with some of the banding down the middle, it can be a little difficult to see, but if you just bear with us, we like this representation of the risk environment because it factors in both inherent risk, residual risk, that which is left over relative to some metric for risk tolerance and risk appetite.
Can you slide it up a little bit so everyone can see the legend?
Yes.
There you go. Perfect.
So this is an important visualization because it shares just, hey, what's left over after the items we have in place, and speaks to areas where, hey, we may want to invest some time, some effort into further managing down risk to an acceptable level for the city.
I have a question. It seems to me most of these are in line with what you would typically see with other government entities. So, for instance, political climate seems like it's always going to be a high risk because you have boards that are constantly changing. Same with asset management, catastrophic events. So I guess what I'm looking for is how do we as council ascertain the comparison of our specific risks with those that are typically seen, and at what level in comparison with other municipalities?
Is that a question for Plant Moran or for council?
It is.
That's for you.
So I think
Comparing us to other municipalities. I think that's the question, right?
Right.
Vice Mayor?
So, we did not see anything throughout our assessment that stood out as particularly alarming or unique relative to other municipalities. I would say that initial assessment is correct. There is some of that, adherence to the mean, the median from a risk assessment standpoint that we would find consistent with other Florida municipalities.
Okay, so I think that's really important because as we're looking at this and we're trying to figure out where are our pain points, what I'm ascertaining from this presentation is that we have essentially the same pain points that every other municipality is faced with. And if that's the case, we need to look at what financial, resources we're going to put towards, I guess, addressing issues that every other municipality has to tackle. So, if you all are saying, well, when we did this, nothing really jumped out at us as abnormal, that's good. I think that's good news. But also, I think it's important that this council take that into consideration as we look at, obviously the backup packet, which I'll address at the end of the presentation. The backup packet has a lot of suggestions of how we can engage in process improvements, which I appreciate. But I also just want to make sure that we're not searching for a fire when it doesn't really appear there's much smoke, if any. So I guess at the end, if you could, when you wrap up, just maybe let us know if after doing this assessment, you all do feel that certain resources should be dedicated towards any one of these areas, because it seems we could be more at risk than other municipalities. I would really appreciate that because, again, when you just look at this bar chart and you're not taking it into context as to what other municipalities face, you think, oh my gosh, we've got political climate issues, we've got asset management issues, we've got IT and security infrastructure issues, when in reality, it doesn't seem like we specifically have those issues. It seems like municipalities in general are susceptible to many of these issues. And so we need to not look at these in a vacuum, but really look at the forest of what all municipalities are faced with.
Agree, and well said. Thank you for that. Do we have any other questions or comments?
No, you can go right ahead.
Okay.
If we don't say anything, you can continue.
Okay.
Okay. So we wanted to share some further information on the top 5 risks that were identified through this assessment. And these are the top risks to the city. And many of these risks do exceed that risk appetite level that we had seen with that gray band on the last visualization. So I would say that the risks that do exceed the risk appetite are areas where the city should, where we would recommend that the city focus primarily on implementing recommendations in opportunities for improvement in those risk areas. So the first risk here, political climate. This is a risk that there are shifts in leadership or policy priorities which disrupt funding initiatives or strategic initiatives or funding. This can lead to, this can affect staff morale and momentum in executing a strategic plan if these are reprioritized or changed. And there's can also impact just the long-term strategic focus of the city, and this risk does have an impact citywide. To call out a few mitigating activities that are currently in place to address this risk, A big one is the citizen input that is gathered through surveys and town halls, through the strategic planning process to make sure that city priorities do continue to align with community values, regardless of those political shifts. And then additionally, the strategic action plan dashboard keeps focus and accountability on those long-term goals throughout the city. The next, asset management. This is the risk of inadequate management, tracking, maintenance, or safeguarding of city assets or infrastructure. Heard quite a lot about aging infrastructure. The growth of the city can impact capacity of staff and resources to maintain that infrastructure. And then also there are some instances throughout the city where maintenance is more reactive than proactive. So infrastructure is fixed as it breaks or as there's issues rather than being replaced before it gets to that point. But departments do perform routine maintenance and use data information condition assessments to monitor asset health in many areas. And then also there are the long-term plans like the pavement management plan or stormwater master plan that guide long-term investments for the city for infrastructure and dedicates funding to those initiatives. And then third, public services. So this is the city's inability to meet service expectations for residents, businesses, and visitors. The city citizens do have high expectations, which is a good thing, but that also means that any shortfall in meeting those expectations can be noticeable. So to address these challenges, the city uses citizen engagement platforms like Palm Coast Connect and CD Plus, used by community development to track citizen inquiries and issues, respond to those, provide citizens with real-time insight into the resolution of those. And then the city's also invested in tools, crews, and technology to improve service response. And next, IT security and infrastructure. This is the risk that the city's information technology systems are vulnerable to incidents or insufficient to maintain operations. The risk is twofold here. So there are those manual workarounds and manual processes that discussed earlier. And also one area that we see as being a strong mitigating activity for IT security is documenting a business continuity plan. There is a plan, it's just not documented, which we find significantly helps when it comes to incident response. And over the past couple of years, the city has invested in modernizing different areas of technology infrastructure, and the city does have multi-layer security tools in place to protect the network, and then they also have monitoring mechanisms as well. So those are great mitigating activities in that area. Then lastly, reputation rounds us out here in number 5, and that is the risk of negative public perception of city leadership, services, or decisions, and the risk that that damages trust and engagement in the community. In today's environment, cities really are dealing with information traveling quickly through social media, news, public sentiment can shift rapidly. So how the citizens and residents perceive whether the city's listening or responding to the issues can impact community morale and lead to less support for initiatives if they do not feel like the city's being transparent or meeting their expectations. But they did find that the city is working proactively to maintain a positive reputation. There are multiple community engagement initiatives in place, And then also the communications team works to have a central voice for the city and respond to public feedback in a timely manner. And now that we've run through what that risk landscape looks like, we wanted to provide a few recommendations here that we feel reflect meaningful opportunities for improvement. The report, as you saw, includes a full range of recommendations, so we'll just run through these 5 here. First, for political climate, to smooth transitions and strengthen collaboration between staff and new council members, we recommend organizing internal roundtable discussions between council members and city staff to complement those public town halls that are already in place and just provide a space for early engagement, helping integrate staff's operational perspectives into that strategic planning process early. Then next, for asset management, recommend developing asset management plans for water and wastewater infrastructure to enable proactive maintenance, condition assessments, replacement schedules, reduce the likelihood of any service disruptions for aging assets there. And next, for talent management, we suggest evaluating the compensation practices of the city and how performance evaluations play then into pay, just to make sure that those are aligned and the city's implementing best practices to attract and retain staff. Additionally, as I mentioned, the Munis ERP system issues. So we recommend conducting a project to assess and optimize Munis with the goal of streamlining workflows, automating any manual processes that exist, and improve reporting capabilities to improve efficiency and reduce that risk of errors where manual processes exist. And then lastly, for reputation, we recommend establishing an internal audit function for the city where this role or team would perform a periodic independent review over city operations and controls, identify areas for improvement, and then report on these independently to management and council. And sharing the audit results and the actions that the public or actions that the city intends to take with the public helps demonstrate accountability and reinforces the city's commitment to continuous improvement.
So, ma'am, this would be in addition to our audit that we do every year that's required by the state. So you're saying basically having an inspection or an audit team internally to perform those checks that we also pay somebody else to go do.
That is correct. The annual audit is a financially focused exercise with some but not a comprehensive inspection into operations and other non-financial areas of the city.
Yeah, so I guess for lack of a better term, it's its own like command inspection program. You come in and have other folks, or we have an auditing team, right, that comes in and just checks all our departments. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, and then to support risk management becoming a part of city's operations, we propose the following steps. So first, establishing a clear framework that defines the structure, authority, and design of those who support the city's risk management efforts. We'll go into an example framework on the next slide, but the goal of this is to ensure that there's consistent ownership and regular discussion of risks taking place across departments. Then next, outlining the goals and processes of the risk management function to risk and control owners. Risk owners are those who are accountable for overseeing each of the risks, and they should understand their role in oversight. And then control owners are those who execute key controls on a day-to-day basis, so they should also know what information they need to be reporting up to the risk owner. And this accountability helps foster transparency and engagement throughout the city. And then for the action plans, designating ownership, an accountable person or department for implementing these helps support that mitigation efforts are tracked and completed. And then monitoring progress of implementation of those action plans leads then into the reporting protocols that should be established, reporting to city leadership on status, reporting to the council on status. This creates a continuous feedback loop and prevents risk information from being overlooked during periodic assessments. And then this is an example of the governance framework that we have seen implemented at other organizations, and it follows a 3 lines of defense model, promoting accountability, transparency, and collaboration across the city. So council serves as the oversight body, receives periodic updates on the city's risks. The city manager plays a role in championing the program, assigning and delegating authority, and reporting. We have seen also a risk management committee implemented at other public sector organizations, where this includes individuals from key departments across the city, and they serve as a central coordinator and provide oversight of risk management across the city, regularly meet to discuss risk and oversee implementation of action plans. Then the internal audit function, if implemented, would serve as a 3rd line of defense, periodically assessing the effectiveness of controls and risk management activities conducted by the city. Risk owners are those who are the accountable points of contact for each risk, and then control owners are those who are executing controls on a day-to-day basis and reporting up to the risk owners. And this information flow promotes information going from the front lines, from the control owners to the risk owners, to a risk management committee or city manager, up to the council, making sure that roles are clear on what to monitor and report, leadership is informed and can provide guidance, and then risk management's really embedded across the city. Okay, and then to summarize with the next steps that we would recommend the city take, city leadership and the council should review the proposed recommendations and determine which actions they would like to pursue and implement. And then for these, assigning those responsible parties and timelines to be able to guide execution. And then as those are being implemented, scheduling a follow-up to confirm that they are implemented, functioning as intended is a good practice, just to ensure accountability and allow for course correction if needed. And then integrating risk status updates into quarterly reports to the City Council, highlighting progress towards implementing those action plans, noting any changes in the city's risk landscape, and reinforcing transparency of the risks that are being faced by the city as seen from management. And then we also recommend that this risk assessment is refreshed annually. So risks evolve and change over time, new risks may emerge that the city is dealing with. Existing risks may be reprioritized. So that annual refresh makes sure that the risk profile remains current, and then attention is focused on the most relevant and high priority areas. And kind of implementing these next steps can help take this from a risk assessment exercise to more of a strategic effort that implements and embeds risk management into the city's regular practices. So we will open it up for any further questions from the council.
Thank you, ma'am. Any further questions from the council? Got anything, Councilman Miller?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. So looking at the backup data, the more in-depth dives into each of these kind of risks here, and that includes more than just the top five. I see the recommended actions, and so also I appreciate that you took into account the current stuff that's in progress or what we're doing for mitigating these risks. But is there any ROI-based evaluation of these recommended actions? So in order to prioritize, obviously if you across 10 different risks, you've recommended 15 different actions, we can't do them all tomorrow. So my thoughts are start with the stuff that brings us the most return on investment. Is there any information that you have in terms of what that ROI is for those to try to rank and determine which ones to start with?
No specific statistics or numbers around specific ROI for risk activities. We always recommend start with those top ranked risks, right? Kind of work down there from a general prioritization level. We would be open to working with the city on just further evaluation and determining whether and to what extent we can quantify some ROI on specific near-term risk mitigation actions.
Gotcha. Thank you.
I just went back to the top risks and that matrix you had for that. When you look at key mitigating activities, it sounds like a lot of the five top risks, a lot of the actions to mitigate those risks is underway in the city. And so I'd like to see the results of that. I don't think we need to go through this all every year. I think there's a normal change with the council. There are elections every 2 years, and a major national election every 4 years. So I think you have to let things work. In other words, and see how we're doing. And if there's, I didn't see anything very specific about, okay, we need to put $1 million against this right away to see improvement. So if there's something there I'm missing, I'd like to know if there's anything like that. I think that's your point.
Are you referencing specific activities, or are you referencing the refresh that they had suggested every year?
Yeah, I'm suggesting that our cycle is not an every year thing for a lot of the things that we're talking about here.
I agree. We don't have it budgeted in this next year anyways, so I think that's a moot point in terms of that. But
if there's something that clearly stands out, we need to do this right now. I haven't seen that yet. I'm not an expert in this area, to be honest, but based on the five top risks, I didn't see anything there that we could immediately do something about. And I think our cycle is a 2-year, 4-year cycle.
Thank you, sir. You have anything, Councilman Gambaro?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, I agree. I'm not sure the refresh is required. I mean, I think that the vice mayor kind of captured it well in saying, there's no fire that we need to address right now. And to Councilman Sullivan's point, man, give us time to work it. And if there's something glaring, let's jump on it. If not, let's let the tools that we have in place work through what they're trying to do. a lot of good organizations do have, their own internal inspection programs. I don't know if there's the bandwidth or the resources to commit to doing that in addition to what's required by the state. But, a lot of organizations do have that, but not sure it's required at this point. But it's something to talk about for sure.
In terms of the overall pace of, getting these recommendations again, I agree that they need to be looked at from time to time. I don't know if it's annually, maybe it's 3 to 5 years, something like that, similar to some of our other, master plan cycles that we look at things every 5 years in terms of our master plans. And so if some risk has changed over 5 years, then we can identify it, but we're not doing it every year and kind of getting the same results back yearly. I don't know what the mayor or the vice mayor think about that as well.
Well, I think because we're coming into a new fiscal year, we could start the quarterly check-in. I'm assuming you're leaning forward on that, City Manager?
Yes, sir. It was our intention. We already produce quarterly reports, and they're either emailed to you or sometimes they're put on our website. It was our suggestion to our team to add any of the risk mitigating activities, any completion, any action in those items to those department quarterly reports, and then issue them up to you. And then when something of significance comes, we would obviously bring it to you in a public workshop.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Vice Mayor, you got anything?
Just really quickly, I just to kind of piggyback on what Assistant or Acting City Manager said. I think the best course of action is just to do what it appears staff is already planning on doing, which is to take in the backup data that Councilman Miller referenced, take those mitigating factors or those suggested plans of action to the directors and say, are these already in place? Yes or no. If they are, great. If they're not, do you see any benefit in moving forward with them? If so, what will that cost look like? Because to the extent we need to budget for it, obviously that would have to come back before us, and then we'd have to look at any possible return on investment. But I think since we do have kind of this third party who's come in and said, hey, we see that these actions could benefit the organization, it's at least incumbent upon us to take a look at those, department by department and see what we should be implementing and what could actually improve processes.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Anything else from the council?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, in terms of some of these recommended actions, some of these are things that we've talked about ourselves, whether it's exact billing for fleet services rather than a flat rate. I think we talked about that during the budget process. I think the Vice Mayor asked that question specifically, how those rates were being determined. There's talk of surveying and increased surveying capabilities. We talked about wanting to have that as part of the development of the app, the ability to survey residents on key topics that we may make a decision on, so we kind of know what the city wants to have happen rather than what we think or feel the city wants to have happen. So some of these suggestions stand out as stuff that we've been interested in before. So I'd be very interested in trying to follow through with some of these that I think we already kind of agree with and have identified anecdotally ourselves. That's it.
Thank you, sir. Anything else, Councilman Sullivan? You guys stand by. We're going to open it up for public comment. And if we can, we'll come back and try to get some answers for the public if they have any questions. Yes, ma'am. Ms. Chantel.
Chantal Preniger. It's nice to hear that the IT of the city is vulnerable, and I don't hear anything from you all about it. It doesn't matter in the end if the other cities struggle with some of the same things. If it has to be addressed, please do it. And also, I want to demand a forensic audit, not the yearly superficial look. I'm aware the governor might have offered a Florida Dodge-like audit that might have been refused on the basis that our financial state was healthy in spite of the fact we reached almost $500 million in debt. So I want to know through that forensic audit, is there a possibility that some of previous councils or previous governments, who knows, or even actual, might get some special benefit from builders or whoever that would alter the decisions. People want to know where is the money going, because it's a lot of debt. Okay, so you take decisions, you're going to build that new thing, and it's going to be a new loan. But in the end, it's still a lot of money, and people want answers. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else for public comment? Yes, sir, Tony. What you got? Yes, sir.
Good morning. Tony Amaral, Palm Coast. What you guys did today was great. It's always good to know what you don't know. To have that information is valuable. I do think that maybe this is more of a 2 to 3 year process. As new council members come on board every 2 years, there's a possibility of having that. Getting the assessment, seeing where we were, seeing what's happened to solve it or work on it, and then getting a new assessment from a third party outside would be my opinion on that matter. And it just kind of gives that perspective where you're being transparent. We're saying where are our major vulnerabilities. This is what we've done to produce it. We are always going to have vulnerabilities and risk. It's the nature of living in Florida. It's the nature of being in a city, but we can keep track of it. If we lose a director, which we didn't have, like for instance, for utilities for 2+ years, it does kind of restate what needs to get done and makes it open and public so that everyone's aware of what's happening. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else for public comment? Seeing no one come forward, we'll bring it back to the dais. I think Doug's back there. When I first came in the office, that was the first question I had for him, is how vulnerable we are as far as cyber attacks and stuff like that. So I'm sure Doug's doing his part. Anything else from the council? Any follow-ups?
Yeah, just wanted to mention, in terms of risk, obviously always mitigating things like cyber attacks are very important and constantly evaluating that. I don't think all the risks that they're talking about with IT are, attacks from outside. It's inefficiencies, it's other things. So there's a lot that they're talking about, not just whether we can be attacked, as like a cybersecurity event. And then just to address the question about DOGE that you had said. So there were kind of 3 phases to the process of DOGE. So after I had finally gotten a hold of the office in Tallahassee, I think they had already actually sent this out to every city, but it was basically a question of financial health. The things that you had mentioned, like have you defaulted on a loan payment? Have you done this? Have you done that? Which none of those things applied to us. So we, checked yes or no on each of the boxes and signed off on it and sent it back. Then once I had contacted the office and said, hey, we want to be audited by DOGE, that's when they sent a second request, which was a bunch of data via spreadsheets to be uploaded to the DOGE portal. And then later, I think 2 months later, they asked for more data. So they're kind of doing it in phases where they're digesting all this data from all these cities, standard data. So they're asking the same questions of everybody. Yeah, it's the same process. So that's kind of how it went. Nobody refused anything. In fact, I went looking for them, trying to get them to come. It just doesn't seem like they're going to expend their resources at like a smaller city level to send a team out here and kind of like sit here for a week and audit like they would for a Jacksonville or an Orlando or a Tampa situation, just because the savings they can find there are much larger than what they can find here. I hope that answers your question.
I think it's about risk. If the state looks at it and say, well, what are the risks for that city? And if an alarm bell goes off, they're going to come down and look at it.
Yeah, I think they have key metrics, and they're looking to see if some of ours are skewed. For instance, they've mentioned Brevard and that their revenue has risen 70%, but their population hasn't grown at all. And they're saying, hey, doesn't match inflation, so you're spending more than what you need to match inflation. So we have questions about that. For us, that's not the case. So, and hopefully the results show those key metrics that we're on par or better than a lot of cities, but we'll see how that comes back.
I think that was the same thing that Jacksonville ran into, like $2 million or something that they were overspending or something. Yes, sir.
I just didn't want to go by without, if you go back to the matrix, the XY matrix, and catastrophic events that have occurred. The unfortunate thing is here in our city, there have been a number of catastrophic events that have occurred in the last few years. So I think I hate to say it, but we're kind of used to responding to those with our emergency management system. The problem is if you go a couple of years and there aren't any catastrophic events, it's very easy to lose that ability to handle them. So I would just say one of the things I would look at, I don't know if it's in the full report or not, is just to make sure when we have pauses in that for a couple of years to make sure we're still on top of how we would respond to the most significant event that can happen, which would be a catastrophic event. So you have to be really careful about that because it doesn't take long for people to forget how to handle stuff and get a little bit too relaxed on it.
Do not become complacent.
And that points to documenting that process and making sure that you have a manual so that, say, in 5 years, somebody who is now in a position that was not in that position 5 years ago when the last event occurred, they know how and what steps to go through, right?
Anything follow-ups from you, Councilman Gambaro? Vice Mayor, any follow-ups?
No, Mayor, thank you.
Thank you. Matt, Brianna, thank you for your time. We really appreciate it. We will keep you in the Rolodex if we need you again.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We will move on to presentation number 2, Community-Driven Economic Development Vision Plan.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and City Council. We have the Northeast Florida Regional Council representative, Ms. Monica, here to present to you how the process is going to go for the Community-Driven Economic Development Plan. Council, if you recall, you approved this item several meetings ago on your business agenda, and so Ms. Monica is here to tell you how it's going to go and when we're engaging the public and the plan. So I'll let you take it away.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Good morning. My name is Monica Dominguez, and I'm here on behalf of the Northeast Florida Regional Council. I see a lot of familiar faces, from our board. But for those of you who don't know about the Northeast Florida Regional Council, our work expands over a 7-county region in the Northeast of Florida, and we provide services, whether it be economic development, resiliency, emergency management, planning, and healthcare coalition management. We do all sorts of work with our counties and municipalities across the region. Typically, we have a whole team of us, but we're spread thin this week, and so we're all covering different areas. But for this specific project, we've put together a multidisciplinary team. It includes myself and Cassidy Taylor from the Economic Development Department. And then we've also sprinkled in some folks that deal with resiliency and GIS planning, so for mapping. Also to just cross-reference a lot of the pressures that, we're feeling across Northeast Florida. And then we also have Jacksonville University intern Gary Menard joining our team this time. So I wanted to walk you through, basically what the visioning process would look like. First of all, we now have, we've met with your staff multiple times, and we've now been given a lot of documents that are floating around your community, whether it be your community, your national community survey that you issue every couple of years, your target industry study, your economic development from your comprehensive plan, and your Prosperity 2021 document. So all these documents touch economic development in different ways, but I think for our value, we've been reviewing them because a lot of these things need to be aligned and confirmed with your community. The way we structure our community engagement program is, getting up here in front of everyone can be intimidating. So we try and really bring that element down for residents and whoever decides to participate. One of the things we do through our presentation is we seek people's preference. And we do this by using a software called Mentimeter, which provides live results as people are participating. So people can kind of see what people are thinking in terms of, for example, workforce development. We give them different options and people vote through their smartphones. Now, we realize, smartphones may not be for everyone, so we also issue paper, surveys so different folks can participate different ways. In addition, after that, we break out into different sessions with a flip chart, and we ask general questions about, whether it be quality of life, infrastructure, and business in general. And people have more of an open-ended avenue to share their feedback with us. Through different meetings and also an online survey, we gather all this input and we start developing themes, we start developing, directions and recommendations. And in the end, the final product is a vision plan. So what does this include? A community vision statement based on the results, all your public engagement results, both in raw form and also synthesized. And then the results of the visual online preference survey. So for your program specifically, today I'm here, if you look at this meeting schedule, we have, upwards of 8 meetings. And today we're kicking it off with City Council. Next week, we are kicking it off with the community on October 2nd. That meeting will be more of a general meeting, and what we're trying to do is we're hunting for themes of what the community, what the community's thinking, what their preferences are. And from there, we start kind of deep diving into what we've heard from the first meeting. So the second meeting, and by the second meeting, between the first and the second meeting, we will also launch an online survey, because we all know evening meetings are great, but not everybody can attend them. And so what we want is just to create accessibility in terms of input. So then your second meeting is on November 6th. November 18th, since I've submitted this presentation, we're trying to define a date for that. So that's a pop-up event. And the thinking with staff is that we want to go where people are gathering. So it won't be a formal community meeting, but we'll have a pop-up event where we'll have flip charts. We'll tell people about this visioning exercise, and people can just give us raw input. So we've done that in a few communities, and because it's casual, it attracts a different kind of crowd. So we still have to define that meeting. It was originally November 18th. We will get a new date out to the community. Then we go to January 15th, and that meeting is now sort of the conclusion of our public engagement, and we're asking the community, this is what we heard over the last 4 meetings. Did we get it right? By that point, the community is saying, great, or you should add more of this. Then by April, May, we will have a draft vision plan for you to review. And we come back here. We also work with staff. From January to April, we're working with staff, informing them of the themes we're starting to see. So it's staff vetted before it comes to you. And then in May, we will set up meetings with each one of you to discuss the plan in general. And if there's something you want to add at that point, or comment or further clarification, that would be the time to do it. So by June 2026, it's all wrapped up and delivered to you. So how to participate? As I mentioned, you guys have 4 public engagement meetings. Be mindful that the November 18th date will change. You also have a visual preference survey. And then often after you leave a meeting, sometimes people, when you're giving your opinion, you think, I forgot to tell them about such issue. Well, be not afraid. You can also send an email to pumcoastvision@nefrc.org. Now that comes into my inbox, and it's just another avenue for people to give us what they think. And then that's basically, in a very quick summary, what a year worth of work looks like. And I open now the floor for questions if you have any for me.
Thank you, Monica. Any questions from the council? Councilman Bill?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Hi, thanks for that presentation. So one of my biggest concerns in terms of, visioning, outreach, and things like that is participation, frankly. When the TPO does it, there's me and a city planner and maybe one resident at, the community center. And we're trying to solicit information about how we envision the roadways in Palm Coast to look. And I feel like a lot of people have opinions about traffic and roadways, but yet we don't get a lot of public participation in there. How are you guys planning on ensuring that you get that public participation? I think you had mentioned soliciting surveys electronically versus also the workshops. How are those being sent out? Is it just social media posts like public notice posts, or do we have any targeted lists, or how would we do that?
Yeah, I think you're on the right track. So we have been meeting with your staff weekly now for about 2 weeks. But before that, we had a kickoff meeting with staff last month. So really what we've asked is, please give us a list of stakeholders. In other communities, they use CRA, executive director, neighborhood, resident neighborhood associations, business, chamber of commerce, airport, association, anything that could have an interest in visioning for economic development. And then, around this time, because we're a week away, we send them an invitation to this meeting. So it's a targeted invitation. But in general, we're working with staff, and we've met with them weekly, and we have issued a poster that's also an invite for the community at large. And Jim, I don't know if you want to tell them sort of how you distributed that poster, but our recommendation is put it out on social media, put it out on local newspapers, put it out on Facebook, whatever avenue the city has to promote this. We also promote it on our end, but you have to question how much your Palm Coast residents are going into the NEFRC website, but we still promote it in our own method.
Yeah, I think that's the same issue with like your regional TPOs. Like, your residents aren't following a pseudo government organization from with a different headquarters as Palm Coast, right? So the other thing I would advocate for is the residents that are typically actively engaged that come to meetings. Please tell as many other people as possible as well, so that we know, or they know, that this is happening, so they can give their input as well.
Yeah, and the reason also why we set up weekly meetings with staff is so we let them know, because what happens is the first meeting has great participation and then it trickles out. But, we also monitor participation on the online survey from week to week. So, we are getting a representative sample of your community. At the end of the day, I think some folks, they love, providing input into these type of processes, and some others don't. So we're trying to kind of, cater to both types of people, the ones that like coming to public meetings and the ones that maybe would just like to do it from the comfort of their home.
Anything, Councilman Sullivan?
Yeah, when it comes to this kind of thing, I was struck over the weekend watching the Charlie Kirk meetings and events that they had. And when you looked at the event there in Phoenix, there were over 100,000 people between the inside the auditorium and then outside and so on. But there were over 100,000 people there. In Palm Coast, we have now about 117,000 people. So if you looked at that event and you looked, there probably were 2 rows in the main stadium event, and that's kind of the number of people who actually show up here in Palm Coast to talk about their problems. So we're always going to have that problem, but I like to look at that as a representation and make me, as up here making decisions on the council, that the group that we're supporting is the group like was at that event. Over 100,000 people, 117,000 people in this city, and we have in public participation always a small group. I'm glad they're here, the people are participating, but it is small compared to the bigger population we have. And I think it's always going to be a problem, but that's why we have a representative form of government we're up here to make those decisions in the end. So I think we, as your representatives, it's critical to us to do the best we can. I mean, I was just thinking of that as an example of what we're trying to do here, and sometimes you forget the size of the people that we're trying to represent. That's all.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Gambaro?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, first, I wanted to thank my fellow members of the Board of Directors for the North East Florida Regional Council for approving our request. And then I think it's incumbent upon us to maybe participate in some of these as well, just to be there in the background as a participant and advocate. And City Manager, I don't know how effective these reels that we've been doing on all of our different projects, but hey, we're going to be at this event. We want your input. We'd love for you to be part of helping us shape the vision for the future. I think if we want participation, we've got to be part of this engagement, just so we can hear it right directly from our residents on what's working, what's not working, as we continue to shape, the future of our city.
If I may, I think participation from council, I think it brings sort of an interesting mix, and I think it's one thing if it's staff and NEFRC, but I think if we definitely encourage participation throughout the whole process. So, I mean, it's a dynamic type of democratic process.
That's right.
Thank you, sir. Vice Mayor, do you have anything?
Yes, just really quickly. Thank you for the presentation and for the efforts being put into this. I think I share the concerns of my colleagues in that we seem to have consistent participation by a lot of the same folks over and over, which is great. And I share the sentiment of my colleagues in that we greatly appreciate it. But I feel we're still missing out on such a large swath of our community. What I would like to see, if possible, is if when we do these surveys, we actually have a question in there that asks the resident if they have filled out any type of city survey within the last year. We can connect that then with the medium that we're using to contact them. So whether it's an event, whether it's social media, whatever it may be. In other words, if we are reaching out to people via email or social media and they say, no, I have not filled out a survey in the last year, well, now perhaps we know we've stumbled upon a medium where we're reaching people that have not previously participated. Whereas if we're giving out surveys at events and somebody says, yes, I have filled out a survey in the last year. Okay, now we know we've probably got a lot of the same people going to events and filling out surveys. I hear the word we've reached out to stakeholders. I keep hearing that over and over. And so I feel like we're kind of getting this whitewash of responses back from a lot of the same stakeholders over and over. I know we have an upcoming neighborhood watch meeting, so just making sure we're reaching out to people, and this is more of a general statement whenever we have these types of surveys, making sure that we're really in tune with any types of meetings like that so that we're reaching a lot of these folks that are really engaged with their neighborhoods and utilizing them. Hey, send this out, share this link, whatever it may be, with the people that you talk with. Like, for instance, Mr. Webb always comes to the podium and says, hey, I've been texted by all of these people. I'm kind of speaking on behalf of this group, utilizing those folks and saying, hey, you get texted from them. Can you send them this link to this survey? So, that's kind of more of just a suggestion to staff as we're working with folks like yourselves and trying to get more engagement, because I do fear, like Councilman Sullivan said, I do fear we're just missing out on so much feedback from our residents. So just some suggestions as to what we can do to really figure out what we're capturing and what we're missing and perhaps be able to reach more of our residents.
Thank you, ma'am. Anything else?
Yeah, just wanted to add, in terms of surveys, I know we've experienced in the past, if there's not controls to limit responses to one via, an email address or something like that, then sometimes we get some people that are overzealous in one direction, responding to the survey over and over and again, trying to skew the survey, so to speak. So if there's controls that can handle that, that would be probably in the best interest of the correct data.
Thank you, sir. If that's it, we're going to open it up for public comment. Does anyone have any public comment concerning this presentation? Seeing no one come forward, we'll bring it back to the dais. Monica, thank you so much for you and your staff coming down to brief us on this, and we look forward to the results. We're going to move on to item 4, ordinance 2025, chapter 44, traffic and vehicle art. What did I skip?
Presentation code.
Yeah.
Processes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Ms. Barber. I'm sorry. Co-process.
It's okay.
I'd already put a line. I'd already put a line through
It's
it.
fine.
Mayor, City Council,
yes,
during your May, one of your workshops in May, it was requested that staff compile a presentation that overviews the entire code enforcement process, as well as we've included some of those top cases that we see, whether it's at Code Board or what our code officers are seeing on boots on the ground. And we thought it might be helpful for you to see some of our friendly faces that are interacting with the public. So Ms. Barbara Grossman has invited her team that are beside her and behind her today as we navigate the code enforcement process and then the next couple of items on your agenda. So, Ms. Barbara.
Good morning, Mayor, City Council. Barbara Grossman, Code Enforcement Manager, and I'm joined by my staff to present the code enforcement procedures. Topics for discussion today will be Code Enforcement Division, including animal control, business tax receipt, code and urban forestry, code enforcement board processes and appeals. Code enforcement falls under multiple regulatory authorities such as the Florida statutes, the city ordinances, the Unified Land Development Code, and the Florida Building Code.
Good morning, Mayor and City Council. My name is Liliana Philippe, and I am the Code Enforcement Specialist 2 for the Code Enforcement Division. These are the top violations that are issued in this city. Next, we have. Sorry.
Go back for a minute. Let's not breeze through it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Look at number 2.
Well, we're going to fix that.
Yeah.
You good, Mr. Sullivan?
Yeah, just got it.
You got it?
How many no permit violations do we have a year, Barbara? You got a rough estimate?
With permits,
Just off the top of your head. It doesn't have to be.
at the top of my head, normally work without a permit is not as much. It's the expired permits that come into play. So they do obtain a permit, but then they let them expire, and that's what you see, which I'm starting to see right now with new construction. That they cleared a lot, and now I'm sorry?
I'm saying because they're slowing down in terms of building, so they've pulled a permit, they anticipated building a home, but now maybe the timeline for that home is being stretched out, and so the permit's expiring.
Right, and then what we have to do is we have to go into a mitigation process because you've got the neighbor that's upset that the lot was cleared next door and nothing's happening. So you're seeing more of that than you are seeing people not pulling a permit at all.
All right, one more quick question from me, Barbara. On the HVAC system, when did that become a city ordinance?
Well, actually, in 2008, August of 2008 is when we redid the Land Development Code. But I'm going to tell you the ligustrums that are around my air conditioning unit, even though I've had a couple of air conditioning units, I built my house in 1988. It was in effect at that time.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Please continue.
Okay.
You're going to give
So-
somebody a headache. You go too fast.
Sorry about that. Okay, so next we have nuisance abatement process. We just completed that. You all heard that a couple months ago. The final list has been transmitted for this fiscal year. It has gone over to the tax collector for a placement on the 2026 tax rolls. The nuisance abatement, if you remember, applies to public nuisances such as the overgrowth, hazardous trees, debris, trash. The city generally utilizes this process for unoccupied property, and it is enforced by both the code and urban forestry.
Good morning, Mayor and City Council. My name is Eva Rodriguez. I am the Code Enforcement Technician 3 in Animal Control within the Code Enforcement Division. Palm Coast Animal Control provides assistance and education to the residents for the benefit of their pets. By licensing dogs and cats residing in the city, animal control officers have the ability to return stray animals to their owners, avoiding stress for both the pet and their owner. Licensing also ensures pets are vaccinated appropriately for their safety and the safety of our community. Palm Coast Animal Control is governed by Florida statute. To contact Animal Control, please call 386-986-2520. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good morning, Mayor, Council. My name is Michael Giuliano, and I'm the Business Tax Inspector within the Business Tax Division. For those of you who are not familiar with business tax receipts, it is a tax on a business for the right to operate within the city and provide services. And our office, the Business Tax Division, we're responsible for the following. We issue and manage all local business tax receipts, and they are formerly known as occupational licenses. They changed the names a few years ago. We manage and we issue residential door-to-door solicitation licenses. We manage and we issue short-term rental registration process, just the registration process. We manage the vendor special event permits in the city for the special events that operate here in the city, whether they're city-sponsored or private events. We investigate complaints related to any of the above except the short-term rentals. That's code enforcement. They do the enforcement for short-term, but we investigate complaints. We issue violations and attend code board and special hearings as necessary. We also submit referrals to the Economic Development and Small Business Development Office here in the city. And we are part of the city vendor registration workflow process. And that's when different departments have to hire a vendor. They go through the workflow process, and we make sure they have the proper credentials.
Oh, go right ahead.
Just for my own benefit, the state just did something on business taxes and passed legislation along those lines. Does any of that affect what you do?
We follow with the state. That's Chapter 205, and we follow that closely. So far, it hasn't really affected us.
I just had a question about the solicitation permits. Who enforces those? Is that the sheriff's office?
Yes, it's right in our ordinance that we just rewrote about a year and a half ago. If they have a license and they have complied with the city, it's a level 2 background check. We issue an ID like this. We can revoke them. We bring them to a special hearing. We could suspend them. We could fine them. If they're unlicensed, that's the sheriff's department.
And just for the general public, I had a gentleman come to my house, and I asked him for his solicitation permit. I encourage the public to ask for it. You ask them to see it. If they don't have it, say, you can get bent, get off my property, and then call the sheriff's department.
We work very well with the sheriff's department in educating solicitors and the public when they call. I email them all the directions they should follow, and I work hand in hand with the commander here with the sheriff's department.
And to follow on that, what I've seen lately is one, a lot of people not complying. Right, they're just going straight into the neighborhoods, but. To the mayor's suggestion, yes, ask for the license because you know they've been background checked then. The second thing is a lot of them will say, well, I'm not soliciting. Please call this sales call center after my educational presentation that I'm giving you. They're soliciting, and they should not be at your door.
That's correct.
They can't redefine what soliciting is. If they're walking to your door with the intent on you buying something from them or doing something for them in some way, that's soliciting. So just know that you can send them away and report them if they're doing that.
And we're coming into campaign season, and campaigning is not solicitation.
No, there are certain exceptions in religious organizations, political campaigning, and there's only a few of them. And I think small children that are accompanied with an adult.
Yes, sir.
And note that we no longer use paper. We have badges.
Yeah. Yep.
So that makes it a
Well-
lot easier.
Yeah, the kid I asked, he had a badge.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning, Mayor and City Council. My name is Caitlin Norberg, and I'm a Code Enforcement Technician 2 for Urban Forestry within the Code Enforcement Division. Urban Forestry provides wildfire mitigation, tree removals, and residential landscape inspections. The city's wildfire mitigation program under Chapter 25 ensures that undeveloped properties are mitigated as much as possible to help protect structures from future wildfires. And this program works to provide and ensure 30 feet of hazardous vegetation adjacent to residential structures is removed. For tree removals, a no-fee permit is required, and permits can be obtained by contacting Urban Forestry by phone, or they can obtain a tree removal inspection request on the city website. Hazardous trees are also enforced under Chapter 35, Public Nuisance, and are defined as dead, diseased, or dying. Also, in addition, Urban Forestry conducts landscape inspections for residential properties. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thanks. Just for everybody, the public's information in terms of this, I know specifically for urban forestry and the tree removal, but I believe it's probably the same for other things that we're mitigating. So an unoccupied lot next to you has a tree that's leaning your way. You report it. It's evaluated and determined whether it's dying, dead, whatever the case may be. If so, then there's a responsibility for the city to contact the owner of the property first, and they're given 30 days to then comply, right, to have it removed. And then at which case we would remove it via a contractor and then bill it back to the property owner, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. So just for everybody's, I've worked with Barbara multiple times, people contacting me about trees and things like that and gone through the process. And sometimes it's very quick because the owner says, go ahead and do it tomorrow and I'll pay you back. And sometimes it takes all 30 to 40 days to get it done. And so just wanted to make sure everybody was aware of the process because I've had so many people on social media contacting me, things like that, that we do have a process and we just have to go through it.
And there is a determination. There's a possibility it could be an imminent threat. We're not going to give you 30 days. We're not going to let your house be the target. It depends on the condition of the tree itself.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good morning, Mayor and City Council members. I'm Luis Mendez, City's Code Compliance Supervisor for the Code Enforcement Division. The regulations for code enforcement are governed under several authorities as shown above. The Code Division promotes, protects, and improves the health and safety and welfare of citizens of Palm Coast and property values by enforcing state laws, codes, and all ordinances. I will go into detail the enforcement process for initiation to challenges and appeals. Code enforcement is the process of ensuring individuals and properties comply with local laws, ordinances, and regulations related to public health, safety, and welfare. To initiate a code issue, there are procedures that are provided in the state statutes for complaints to follow as well. There is no anonymity allowed when making a complaint unless it's an imminent threat. Our officers follow a detailed process to make sure all complaints are either founded or unfounded. This is the process for the case and work order from start to finish. If a case is deemed unfounded, the case is closed. Any questions?
Okay, then we move on to the notice requirements for a hearing. Notice requirements are mandated by Chapter 162 of the Florida statutes for a violation that will go to a code board hearing. The violator must be given proper notice of the hearing. That notice must be in writing. Notice is sent by regular and certified mail a minimum of 30 calendar days prior to the hearing date. This is a requirement in the statutes. Notice of hearing is also posted at the property or hand-delivered a minimum of 10 business days prior to the hearing.
So in terms of code board, what has to happen prior to that? So the notice of remedy and then non-compliance with that, and then is there any other steps in between?
So notice to remedy allows the city to go in and remedy the violation. So like a lawn that's overgrown, a hazard tree that needs to be removed, property owner is given time.
So it's something that if they don't handle it, we'll handle it and bill it back.
Correct.
And then code board,
Code board would be a notice of violation. Notice of violation is issued. They're given time to take care of the problem, or there could be other factors. But if a case is deemed that it needs to go to code board, that's when it gets submitted to me.
I guess that's the question is how does something get to that point, or what's the criteria for it to get to that point?
It almost is 3 strikes and you're out.
Okay.
Okay, the idea is we want to educate you. We're not here to take punitive damage. We're not here to take you to code board. We're here to say, hi, welcome to the city of Palm Coast. You need to mow your lawn. Welcome to the city of Palm Coast. You need to repair your fence. So we give you that opportunity. If that opportunity arises again, then we're going to have to go to the next step. So it's kind of a courtesy, notice of violation, code board.
Okay.
Mr. Miller, so like on top of that, like Ms. Grossman and her team, like they work constantly with citizens to make sure the code is in compliance. And if it's getting to code board, that means that either there's a refusal to come in compliance or they can't get in touch with the person. So this is kind of like last step. Now we have to take you to code board.
Right. Gotcha.
I had someone contact me about the certified mail. How much do we spend, and is that?
It's state statute.
State statute, that's what
It's required to be sent both certified regular mail and hand delivered if possible. But it's a requirement by state statute.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
Any further questions on this slide?
Okay, there are also hearing notice requirements for repeat violations that the city follows. A repeat violation is going to be a violation of the same provision of the code by the same person, and it occurs within the last 5 years. And of course, when it is a repeat violation, the code officer does not have to provide a reasonable time to correct the violation. They can bring the case straight to the code enforcement board, and a higher fine can be imposed for that. Next, we have recurring violations, reoccurring violations, and imminent threat violations. Recurring violations are, it's if a notice of violation is issued and the violation was corrected but recurs before the time provided to correct, the case can be presented to the code enforcement board. And for imminent threat violations, which is pursuant to Florida Statute 162.064, if a violation presents an imminent threat to the public health, safety, and welfare, or if the violation is irreparable or irreversible in nature, the officer need only make a reasonable effort to contact the violator and may request a code hearing. And now I'm going to pass it along to the city attorney.
Good morning, City Attorney Marcus Duffy. So in your first slide here, these are some of the best practices that our code enforcement team uses. Just like the Sheriff's Office, main priority is to educate our citizens, try to keep everything de-escalated, and then proactive with the inspections. We don't want to have a complaint-driven system. We want to be able to educate the citizens and keep everyone working together. Next slide, please. So the challenges that our team works through is we have our legal considerations. Number one, due process. As Ms. Philippe talked about, is we have to meet the 30-day requirement and we have to meet that 10-day requirement before we can bring them to code. Next thing is the constitutional issues. A lot of complaints that we get on people's properties deal with First Amendment issues. Freedom of speech. A lot of people get a lot of penny savers sent to their house or sent to properties. We can't keep that from happening. That is a First Amendment where that person is allowed to send those in and out. If that person that private property person wants to not have them delivered, they would have to deal with that with the penalty saver, but we cannot restrict them. So that's one issue that we deal with. And then making sure that we go through the procedure. So if someone wants to challenge their code enforcement decision after it's gone to code board, they would file that with the circuit court, our 7th Circuit here in Flagler County. Next slide. So Code Enforcement Board is under Florida Statute Chapter 162. The board members are appointed via City Council pursuant to Section 2-205. We have 7 members and 2 are alternate members. They only vote when your active member cannot attend. The last point here is that the board members must be residents of city, and appointments are made based on experience and interest in the subject matter. Any questions before I move on? Next slide, please. So these are the do's and do nots. So our Code Enforcement Board, they hear all the cases. They ensure that due process is observed and that the orders are stepped to bring the violation to compliance. They don't issue a report of violations. They don't make a complaint. They can't recommend additional violations during a hearing. All they can do is they make a motion based on what the evidence they see in front of them. Next slide. So Code Enforcement Board hearing is just like your quasi-judicial hearings that you guys have here. They have to make sure that everyone is under oath when they're giving evidence testimony. They require that everyone gets an opportunity to be heard. They make their decision based on the evidence that is presented before them. And they have anything from testimony, photographs, documents, anything that they think is relevant. Next slide. So this is just going through the process again. So we go through what the evidence of the violation is. Then you set a fine based on the 3-factor test that they go through: the gravity of the violation, corrective action by the violation, and any previous violation committed by the violator. I will say in my attendance of the code boards, if the citizen has everything taken care of by the time they get the code board, usually it's the board recommends a fine order of bringing them here based on staff, which is usually less than $90 or something like that.
You're talking about the actual order of compliance?
Yes.
$53.50 to $73.
Yeah. So that's usually a lot of the cases. If they meet the compliance by the time they attend their code board meeting.
They receive a no fine standing order. Correct, no fine.
Next slide. So this is the process. Just like you guys have your process when you have your hearings, the chair calls the agenda, city presents their evidence, the respondent comes up, has plenty of time to respond to the allegation. The city then also presents any evidence if they need to, and then questions, discussions, and a vote by the board. Next slide. This is just a more detailed explanation of the process, but no different to your guys' quasi-judicial hearings when you have someone that comes up here and presents an application. Staff gives their presentation, then the applicant gives theirs, and then you make a decision. Next slide. So when there's non-compliance, they are given a date set by the order, which is what we talked about, a known fine, and no hearings required. But then non-compliance by the date set forth in the order, the case goes back to the Code Enforcement Board for a Massey hearing, pretty much a compliance hearing. If found non-compliant, an order imposing the fine is entered and runs for each day the violation continues past the compliance date. Next slide. So these are kind of the areas where what we kind of go is trying to get the property in compliance. So right now there's a resolution that a previous council passed that gives the city manager authority pretty much to negotiate with residents when they bring something into compliance. I'll give a good example of this. We had a property that was not coming in compliant. We had to get to the point where I had to file a foreclosure action against them. And when we filed the foreclosure action, they reached out to Ms. Grossman, and we were able to negotiate getting that property taken care of. Didn't have to go the litigation route, but it took that filing that foreclosure route and negotiating to get them to come into compliance. Next slide. And this is just talking about the appeal process. They have, just like a quasi-judicial hearing, once the Code Enforcement Board makes a decision, they have up to 30 days to appeal that at the circuit court. If they do appeal, my office would represent the city council, the Code Enforcement Board and city at that hearing. Next slide. All right.
Okay, the next few slides will describe the difference between using a hearing officer and using volunteer code enforcement board. The hearing officer was put into place by City Council in accordance with Ordinance 2006-24. The hearing officer hears special cases such as dangerous dogs and licensing of animals, administrative hearings, and certain appeals. In accordance with city codes, the hearing officer shall be an attorney in good standing with an in-depth knowledge of the law, and the current hearing officer has contracted hourly to be paid. As you know, the Code Enforcement Board is a volunteer board appointed by the City Council. It's a 7-member quasi-judicial board with 2 alternates. At these meetings, the city attorney represents the city, while the board has a contracted attorney that represents the board pursuant to state statutes. They each have to have an attorney. There is an advantage to the way code violations and cases are heard in the city. There's a substantial cost saving by using a code enforcement board versus using only a hearing officer. For fiscal year 2025, the hearing officer heard 59 cases for $22,880, which includes travel. Be reminded again, of this 59, it is actually animal control and possible trespass, or maybe a civil citation for parking. The hearing officer uses more time when orders have to be created than sent to staff for processing. The city currently holds the hearing officer hearings on a quarterly basis, or if necessary, meaning there's an appeal process. A hearing will be scheduled prior to the next quarterly meeting. For fiscal year 2025, there were 403 cases heard by the Code Board. The costs associated with the Code Board attorney for the fiscal year have been approximately $13,500. City staff process the orders in-house. Just to point out, the person that attends the board is approximately 12 people. The average of non-appearance cases is 33. So there are 33 cases that are heard that the actual individual is not there. There are 12 that they are. All cases are heard by the Code Enforcement Board. The next 2 slides are analysis of costs using Code Enforcement Board versus hearing officer. And I'll let you peruse that so you can see the difference. God bless you. Important note on assumptions. This analysis assumes that each Code Board case would require the same average amount of time as a typical hearing officer case, 1.71 hours. Therefore, the savings estimated is around $111,218 to use a Code Board versus a hearing officer. Any questions?
Any questions from the City Council? Vice Mayor, do you have any input?
I do. I have a few questions, and I was just waiting until the end here. One of the slides said that one of the best practices is to maximize enforcement technology tools. Can you speak to those? What those are, Barbara?
Well, to maximize them, to be able to get them into compliance, technology, outreach. Speaking to people, but technology is the biggest thing, I would say.
Right. My question is, what type of technology? I mean, what are we leveraging to improve and maximize enforcement?
Well, hopefully, when they've come in here, they're going to go to the website and they're going to see that, we use the citizen education to prevent violations. We de-escalate through communications. We're proactive with inspections to reduce the citizens' complaints, and we maximize enforcement with the technology tools. So when we're out there, we're speaking with the public. If they're coming in here, if they have questions, they're contacting us via phone to be able to talk to a tech, that we can educate them so that we can keep compliance and not have to go through the code process.
So, kind of in line with our earlier presentation on maximizing efficiencies, are there any technologies that can assist with proactive monitoring? Because that was going to be my next question, is what type of proactive monitoring are we doing? One of the most common complaints I get is that there isn't really consistent enforcement in a proactive way. In other words, I consistently hear that there's a lot of cherry picking as to what's going to be enforced and what's not. So, twofold, is there any technology that could help us more consistently apply our code, number one? And number two, what type of policy do we have in place in order to engage in proactive monitoring and enforcement?
Okay, we're both we're proactive and reactive. Okay, we have GPSs in our vehicles. We have to be on every street twice a month. Okay, so once we do our blue lines, as we call it, with the GPS, if we are addressed to a street, for instance, let's say trash cans in public view, the whole street will be written for trash cans in public view. So the idea is the officer, they're in zones, there's 11 zones, and in those 11 zones, they have to be on each street twice a month.
Okay, that's helpful. I appreciate that. Thank you. And then my last question was, I've been hearing lately that we've had a lot of unlicensed contracting occurring. How are we enforcing unlicensed contracting in our community? And that, I know that's not really as much in your purview as it is building department, but I did want to bring it up.
No, Mr. Mendez is here to speak. It is in his purview.
Okay, perfect.
Good day. Yes, this is Luis Mendez. Yes, I do handle unlicensed contracting for the city. I go on various complaints that come in. I also work with entities like Crimes versus Seniors. I also set up meetings with other entities. The building department also refers, which is basically that I do the unlicensed contracting for as part of the building department. And these hearings are taken to the county every month on the third Wednesday of every month, where they're produced. I bring forward every month, usually anywhere from 3 to 6 cases, depending how busy I get and what's presented to me at the time. Just now, I presented, I think it was 6 cases just this last week. So that's what I do with unlicensed contracting.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you. Do you think it might be worthwhile for us to, or for you to maybe engage with our HBA? Because, for the most part, I think those folks are the ones in our community who want to do things the right way. And I will tell you, many of them have been in contact with me and just said, hey, there's a lot of unlicensed contracting going on. And so it makes it harder for those who want to do it the right way, because as you, I'm sure, recognize, Mr. Mendez, when you are engaging in pulling proper permits and having proper licenses, it, of course, increases your bottom line and it makes your product more expensive. And so it makes you less competitive with those that are engaging in unlicensed contracting, even though at the end of the day, your product is probably superior. So how often, if at all, do we kind of engage with the HBA to keep our finger on the pulse of what they're seeing out in the community?
Normally, the Home Builders Association will reach out to us if they are having some issues with unlicensed contractors. And now that we're in hurricane season, we do work together to make sure that we have licensed contractors.
And Vice Mayor Pontieri, the Sheriff's Office recently did an unlicensed contractor operation with the state DBPR, and it resulted in 4 arrests.
I did see that. Yeah, that was big. I appreciate that, Acting City Manager. Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
Any more comments from the council? Yes, sir.
One from my own education. This idea of the hearing officer versus the code enforcement board, is that an issue that we've wanted answers on?
Well, I think I did, because I think that it's time consuming, and I think Mark has pointed it out to me how costly it is. But say like the city, I just went and just did one city like Tallahassee instead of Gainesville. I looked at like a parking ticket, and for the city of Tallahassee, if you get a parking ticket, you have 3 days to pay the fine or appeal it, and if you appeal it, you go to a magistrate. So it's just 3 days. You don't have to wait a month. You don't have to wait for code board. That's the way they do it. So that was just an example. But looking at the numbers and how much it would cost, it's more cost effective to just do the voluntary code board. It's just making sure that people are treated fairly and enforcement is across the board fair. fair and impartial across the board. No cherry picking, like I think Vice Mayor.
Mayor, since I've been here a shorter time, have we always had hearing officers, or is this a recent development in the last couple of years?
That'd be for.
We've always had a hearing officer for animal control, trespassing, any type of citation. Okay, but if it's a notice of violation, it goes through the code board.
I was just going to say, if I recall correctly, when we did have the red light cameras, then that was referred to a magistrate, I believe, or the courts, rather than, even though it was a city ordinance.
Red light cameras were a lot of fun. Thank you for bringing that up.
But it was a lot of pressure.
It was a hearing officer, yes. And then, of course, as it changed, we had the sheriff's department that had to view them. We viewed them first, but then it became that the sheriffs had to view them, and then the sheriff's deputy would go before the hearing officer, yes.
Yeah. And it added a lot of stress and pressure in terms of the city.
Yeah, I think I read on Nextdoor this morning, someone was talking about maybe we need red light cameras. Everybody went on, you must be new here.
Yeah, exactly.
It was like 3 or 4 comments. You must be new here. We're not going back. We're not doing that again. Okay, any other questions?
I just had one more question for Marcus. You explained kind of the legal process. At some point, I remember or recall that sometimes the results of these hearings are appealed to city council. Is that correct? Or I've seen something. I recall something. It was like a doc or something.
That's going planning board, and that's where they're asking for like a special exception. So that would be the planning board department.
It was one that was out of compliance.
It was the lady with it was the one that went to planning board. It was the one with the deck.
So that's kind of a two-face. Okay, so it was brought up by a code enforcement.
Okay.
Right? And then she asked for a variance.
I remember the fines and those things, yes.
She asked for a variance, would have to go to planning board.
Gotcha.
So that's why I kind of went 2 routes.
Okay.
Anything else from the council? Vice Mayor, you good?
I'm good, Mayor. Thank you.
We're going to open it up to public comment. Yes, Mr. Ms. Chantel, yes.
Just want to comment something. Those people are in a rush. They have an appointment and they have a comment regarding the vehicle they can park on their driveway. So if you can accommodate them, that would be wonderful. Or make a way that they can do it. Thank you.
It's the next item.
It's the next item. Hopefully we'll be there in a second. Yes, Mr. Webb.
Mark Webb, Palm Coast. In a recent meeting, we were talking about the Humane Society, and one of the questions that came up, and I believe it was Vice Mayor's question, was the licensing here in Palm Coast. And someone, I don't remember who it was, made a statement that all of the local veterinarians, when they vaccine your pets, submit the records. And that is true. But they submit them to the county because the county is the control authority. And in verifying that, the county does not submit them to Palm Coast because the criteria of the state guidelines, and you can help me if I understand this correctly, requires that rabies be done and it be submitted to the county. So from what I've been able to ascertain, there is no trigger, no expectation other than doing the right thing to take your pets and license them here in Palm Coast. The reason I bring that up is because that's a loss of income that the city and possibly the county, and we all know and have been talking for 6 months about the need of the Humane Society and the growth of a new building and things like that. So I wanted to present that as an opportunity to take a hard look at working with the county and working with the city to make a determination of helping our citizens understand the value of licensing their pets to generate money, which is only like $5, and I think it should be more than that, to make sure that money goes to help our code enforcement, our dog catchers, and all of that. And the second question I would ask is, how much reliance does code enforcement have on citizens reporting citizens? Because throughout my neighborhood, I spoke to a guy the other day, and he goes, "Oh, no, they don't do the truck issue in driveways anymore. They got rid of that." Now, we have beat that dead horse, and we're about to do it again, but the number and the information, and this guy's been parking his Spectrum truck in his driveway for 3 months, and if truly you're doing a drive every street twice a month, I think you said, then that guy would have been possibly ticketed. And as a citizen, is there a way for me to pull up an address?
Yes.
Or look and see
Yes.
if that's already been done so that I know the system's
Yes,
working?
you can
Thank
go
you.
on the website and you can put in the address and you can see, and you can see what's.
Yeah, there's a search by address, right?
All right, anyone else for public comment? Seeing no one come forward, we'll bring it back to the dais for follow-ups. Did you touch on what he was asking?
Yes, and the other thing, it is state statute that every veterinarian is to turn in their rabies information to the city or the county, whichever, there is an animal control with the county and there's an animal control with the city. So we receive that documentation. It's state statute.
So it comes from the
It's
vet
required
to-
for the
to you.
veterinarian to give us the
To
information.
you, okay. Any follow-ups? Yes, sir.
Mrs. Grossman, I just wanted, and to the team, I just wanted to say thank you for your presentation because we get a lot of questions. How do we enforce our code here? And this has been educational for me, and I'm sure for our residents. So thank you for taking the time. to
Well,
give this
thank you, and please
presentation.
thank my team, and I'm glad you got to meet them all.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Grossman. And we're going to move on to presentation 4. Now we're getting into the traffic and vehicles article. Article 2, stopping standing parking by amending subsection 4434. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Yes, Mayor, City Council, per your request, we brought this item for you, or to you, looking for direction of how you would like the ordinance crafted from that agenda packet, and we have a short presentation to discuss those findings. We are taking direction so that this can be properly noticed out to the community.
Good morning, Mayor and City Council. I'm Barbara Grossman, Code Enforcement Manager, here to present to you on the commercial vehicles. The proposed ordinance will be amending the commercial vehicle code and definition. Oops, sorry. As per City Council request, the proposed language deletion will be any motor vehicle upon which advertising markings have been affixed, which occupy in excess of 3 square feet per side. The addition to exceptions through are also being proposed. And here are the exceptions. A commercial vehicle may park in a residential zone lot if the commercial vehicle has ladders or other attachments which do not exceed the height of the highest point of the vehicle by more than 2 feet and does not exceed the length of the vehicle length by more than 2 feet and meets the other requirements of Section 4434. The commercial vehicle and attachments must be kept in a neat, clean, and well-kept manner.
Mrs. Grossman, can you go back to the previous slide?
Yes, sir.
So basically, we can advertise. Anybody can advertise whatever they want.
That is correct. I have no jurisdiction on reading what is on their vehicle, what is in their yard, as far as signage, only the placement and the size.
Okay, so just for example, let's say Ty Miller was announcing that he had a strip club business and parked that van next to me. I'm just using it as an example.
Mm-hmm.
With whatever vulgarities or whatever that would be allowed.
That
on
is
our
correct.
streets.
I cannot read the content. That's per the Supreme Court, the United States Supreme Court.
And that's the same as it was before. It was just restricted in size.
That's
Okay.
correct.
All right. So I just, for clarification purposes, just want to make sure that's clear for everybody. Not that Ty would run that kind of a business, so I'm just using that as an example.
I'm not saying a word.
Just to jump in really quickly, so I know Councilman Gambaro, was your question specific to what can now be placed on vehicles? Because as I understand it, if somebody wanted to put that type of sign in their yard, as Ms. Grossman stated, we can restrict the size, and obviously those are not supposed to be put in the swales, but somebody could put that same sign in their yard now if they so chose, and we obviously, due to the First Amendment, could not restrict that.
Yeah, my question was just a point of clarification to make sure it's clear that, it says any motor vehicle, right? So, correct. Personal vehicle or, a Sprinter van, because right now the ordinance, the requirement is that Sprinter van or whatever has to be covered up, correct?
They can have the 3 square feet. Anything that exceeds the 3 square feet per side would be required to be covered.
Okay.
So if you had Barbara's Landscaping and it was within that 3 square feet per side, it would be okay. But if Barbara wants to do a wrap of her whole car with landscaping, I have no control.
According to this amendment.
Right.
Okay.
Well, not just according to the amendment. We don't have the right to restrict the type of communication, just the size of it, correct?
Correct. 3 square feet per side.
Right, and I guess my counterpoint would be right now, if somebody were to put a sign in their yard with such an advertisement, we also, as the code sits right now, we cannot restrict that. Only obviously the size
and location.
Right. Okay.
Under the proposed ordinance, here's some examples of vans with racks, equipment or materials, and signage in excess of 3 square feet. These are examples that would be allowed under the proposed ordinance. These trucks also are prohibited by definition. As you can see, the apparatus and things of that nature.
That's because these are defined by state law as commercial vehicles. Is that correct?
No, defined in our code.
In our code specifically.
Mm-hmm.
That's a gut truck right there on the left. Go back one. That one on the left, that's a gut truck.
Yeah.
Right.
Little breakfast.
And Ms. Grossman, when it comes to, like, for example, I went on a run this morning and on my street, which the home that had these kinds of trucks on them were short-term rentals. Mm-hmm. Is there a time restriction on how long these kinds of trucks could be parked in a driveway?
At this point right now, these wouldn't be allowed, but if they were there for service, then they would be allowed. Say if somebody is doing some service there, then it would be allowed, but it's only for service. The only times that we don't go after them is, and it was a policy by City Council, from 11:30 to 2:30 every day. If they go home and eat lunch, go see the baby, whatever. But other than that, no, they should not be there if they're not doing a service or if it's outside of the lunch hours.
Okay, so if it's a contractor renting that house to put a crew there,
Cannot
team,
do. No.
and they're backed
No.
in overnight, okay.
No. And here you see working type commercial vehicles, again, prohibited by definition. Here you have the heavy dump truck and the Big Mac truck. And people like to bring those home.
That was an actual case there, Barbara. Go back to that one.
Yeah,
Which one?
That dump truck right there.
Yes, it was.
And they were just parking it there to park it?
Yes.
You got to
That was not a service. That was not a service call.
It's lawn art, right?
It's lawn art. There
That's
you go.
the loophole.
Those are all vehicles rated above 26,000.
And all of these the photos that you're seeing are here in Palm Coast. And this is a sample of a closed utility trailer, which is prohibited per code. More utility trailers and open utility trailers is prohibited as well. So you're going to see a car carrier, which is a very common thing and happens quite often, where we have to go after them, that they're using, their car carriers.
That's a hot shot dually right there. That's what the one on the left, that's what that's called.
And then, of course, here's the tractor trailer cab, a commercial limousine, both prohibited. These violations are handled by the Code Enforcement Board.
I think I knocked on that guy's door.
So, Mayor, City Council, we're just here to take any direction. If the ordinance is written the way that you would like to, if you'd like to see any changes in the ordinance before we notice it for your next business meeting.
So, with the changes, go back to the changes, Barbara, please.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you asked for the deletion of any motor vehicle upon which advertising markings have been affixed which occupy in excess of 3 square feet per side.
So this is allowing for greater than 3 square feet of advertisement,
Yep. We're not,
up to the size of the vehicle, essentially.
Yeah, you're pretty much allowing any advertising on a vehicle, not restricting it.
Okay. Next.
Okay, and this is the exception. Marcus, you want to take it over from here, or you want?
Yeah, I can take it over. So yeah, the first exception is that when I researched other ordinances based on you guys' direction, discussion, this is kind of I took from other ordinances, other cities that they have the things that are on top of a vehicle, such as a ladder or other attachments, which do not exceed the height of the highest point of the vehicle by more than 2 feet, or does not exceed the length of the vehicle's length by more than 2 feet, and then meets the other requirements. So, good example, when I look at pictures, you say you have a long pole on top of the vehicle. This rule says that that pole can't be 2 feet longer than the length of the vehicle. If it's longer than that, then it's not in the code.
And if I recall, during our discussion, this was kind of where we were trying to determine where the line is going to be in terms of this versus larger vehicles. And there was my understanding is that technically right now the racks are not allowed, but we don't enforce if they're empty.
Correct. Well, they can have a rack as long as they're empty, yes, and they don't exceed.
I think the
12
rule
inches.
the ordinance actually says no attachments to the vehicle, but because they're empty, we don't enforce.
Yeah, usually as long as everyone takes the ladder and everything off, then there's no code violation.
So the feedback I've received from residents that work in the trades is, the act of getting there, taking off the sign or covering, but also removing ladders and things like that, putting them all in the garage. You're spending an hour doing all this stuff to make your vehicle compliant, so to speak. And so I think that's where we got to the point where we're trying to find a way to still have the ladders and things like that on there, so they're not spending an hour unloading a vehicle rack on top, but also not being crazy in terms of the way it looks in the neighborhood and things like that, having 40-foot pipes on the top of a 20-foot van, things like that. So I think this is where we came to kind of a middle ground here.
So the guy that works for Spectrum, the guy that works for Mike Morello, the guy that works for Overhead Door Company, that has a standard size van, pretty much a standard size van or Sprinter van, and they have ladders on top of their truck with their advertising on the side, they will be allowed to park and not be harassed, and they will not have to download everything every night to come in compliance or drape their vehicle with a circus tent.
As long as it's not longer than 2 feet, the highest point, or 2 feet length.
2 feet.
Up or down.
Yep.
Got it.
And it has to be kept in a neat, clean, and well.
In terms of, we already had this discussion. I don't know if anybody else has changed their opinions about this, but I think this is a good middle ground here. This has been kind of an issue for a very long time. It's not allowing these large vehicles in driveways, but it is allowing kind of the working class to do their job and go home.
Yes.
Let's go to the next slide. So the next slide also talks about a little bit more. So I added no hazardous chemicals, bad odors, or anything that is pretty much there's some complaints like white paint coming out of the truck, we don't want chemicals at the residential area. Can't conflict and are no more than 10 feet in height, 18 feet in length. So, and then still has to meet the rest of the exceptions and the rest of the requirements in the 4434, and only one vehicle is allowed in the driveway. Now, we can add more than that, but usually in my ordinances, I saw only one commercial vehicle was allowed in each driveway.
That's reasonable. That's reasonable.
Yeah, I think my worry is if you don't restrict the number of vehicles, that you'll end up with 3 in a driveway or something like that.
If you got a big enough driveway, which a lot of people do, you could have 3 or 4 of those.
Palm Coast parks some vehicles at driveways and other places, obviously.
My only thought here is, is I'm trying to envision what this looks like, from a strategic perspective, and, how does this change the look of our city, for the future? And I think we struggled with this. We went back and forth quite a bit. when it came to the house colors, right? You know, at some point you have standards. I think there's some standards in here, but I guess my question to the council is, you know, what do you think, or how much will this change the complexity or the look of the city of Palm Coast? You know, it's not what happens here in the next year or two, but what happens, how does the city of Palm Coast look 20 years from now? Any thoughts on that?
I don't think it's going to affect, to me personally. We already have vans and stuff like that out there parking now. It's just if their neighbors call on them. How much is this going to reduce your workload, Barbara, as far as enforcing vehicles, which we talked about before? How much is it going to reduce? How much is that going to cut off of your plate having to deal with those trucks on a reoccurring
I guess
basis?
the question would be, how many violations are we of vehicles that would no longer be in violation are we servicing right now?
That was one of the top offenses, right? It was number two.
That and swale parking is another, you know.
Yeah.
Probably more swale parking.
May I jump in here, Mayor?
Yes, ma'am. Go right ahead.
Thank you. So I think it's really great that we're taking the step to allow more work vehicles to be parked in driveways. I initially initiated this because I wanted, you know, your regular vehicles that have signage to be able to be parked in driveways. My concern, I think I kind of share the concern that Councilman Gambaro does here with regards to when we say, Barbara, would you mind going back to the slide previous to this one?
Yes.
So when we say ladders or other attachments, that concerns me because I'm immediately picturing all kinds of stuff being piled on top of these things. And then it also states in B, the commercial vehicle and attachments must be, sorry, I have something blocking my screen. Must be kept in a neat, clean, and well-kept manner. Well, that's subjective. We need to add safe in there. If we're going to have things hanging off of vehicles and parked in driveways going through neighborhoods, should there have to be some type of, I don't know, reflector or something like that makes it very visible? I do have a concern about some of these vehicles being parked in swales more often. I think that if we allow vehicles that have a lot of things piled on top of them, we are going to see more swale parking. The majority of the swale parking that I see now are construction-related vehicles. And I think that if you allow, and this is leaning towards construction-related vehicles, if you allow more construction-related vehicles, you are going to see more swale parking. So I think, you know, for me, that's my concern. I would get rid of these exceptions. I would stick with just eliminating where it says amendment to code and deleting the motor vehicle advertising language. That was my initial suggestion, was just to delete that and keep the rest of the ordinance the way that it is, because I share the concern that Councilman Gambaro does. What does this look like many years from now? People moved to neighborhoods knowing what codes were in place. And I don't think that this is quite the extreme step that we took for the house colors. But I do feel that this is more than I had bargained for when I suggested we relook at this code. So I don't, you know, I would further limit. If we want to say, hey, if you want to, you know, have a ladder on top of your truck, fine. But to say a ladder and other attachments, I think you're going to see that get taken advantage of because it doesn't define it. I know it says up to 2 feet. It can't be higher than 2 feet. That's a lot of stuff. You can pile quite a lot. I don't know that it's safe, and I don't like that subsection B there is very subjective. Who's to say what's a neat, clean, and well-kept manner? If we are going to keep it, we do need to add safety in there as well.
The safety's fine, but on the attachment, Barbara, and maybe you can help out Mr. Duffy as far as a fixed, meaning like, have you ever seen some of the trucks? They have like fixed tubes where they could put stuff in them, but they're affixed to the vehicle. Can we change the language so it's like that? It's not just willy-nilly anything.
I think
it's like design attachments for the function of the truck.
I think in terms of like the functional version of this, right? People aren't, as you're driving down the street, you're driving within safety compliance, right? For the most part, you have to meet certain rules that we don't govern. It's rules that are governed in terms of traffic safety, right? So you don't pull in and then attach things that are unsafe for the road onto your vehicle. It's how they already exist. You're just not unloading them as a functional, like as a worker, right? As a tradesman, you're not stacking more stuff that you wouldn't be able to drive down the road with safely on the top of your vehicle, and now it's in the driveway. We've limited the height of this. I think anecdotally, you don't see crazy attachments to the roof. You see the stuff they use in their daily work, right? Like ladders and piping and things like that. So I think we may be assuming too much in terms of what's going to be affixed to the top of a vehicle. In terms of the swale, particularly, I don't know if, there's a different ordinance that governs that could then say, you can't park these types of vehicles in the swale versus in your driveway. If that's a concern in terms of safety, anecdotally for me, the construction vehicles I see in the swales are typically at like new builds and things like that, where there's nowhere for them to park because the driveway isn't completed, or you don't want to be driving on a newly poured driveway. And they're in the swale because they're actively engaged in the business that they're doing, not at home parked in the swale, because they're technically not allowed to do it right now anyways. So I'm not sure if we can assume more violations of another type because of this. But if we are, I don't know if that falls into this ordinance versus the swale parking ordinance.
Part of the issue, though, just to bring up to you, when you're talking about construction sites, okay, when there's vehicles there and they're parked in the swale, the builder who is ever building is responsible for all the adjacent lots and any damage that's done. That's the difference between me having to go after somebody parked in the swale that isn't a construction site that I'm going to have to go after for damage to the swale. So there's a little bit of a difference there.
I was actually going to make the suggestion that if we are going to go this route, because I'm telling you right now, we will see more construction-related vehicles parked in swales as a result of this. It will happen. I think that our code should probably be changed, whether it's in this ordinance or the ordinance that states you can't park in the swales. If it's a commercial vehicle, that business can be cited. I don't want to not be business friendly. Obviously, that's why I asked for us to readdress this code. But I do feel that business owners need to be responsible for the way their employees, I guess, behave when they're driving their businesses' vehicles. So to the extent we can state in the code that we can hold both the driver of the vehicle and the business who's who whatever business the vehicle belongs to, or whatever business has the wrap or advertisement on the vehicle responsible for that code violation. I think that's a step that we need to take, because this will result in more swale parking. And I hear what you're saying, Councilman Miller, about there oftentimes being, ongoing construction. And obviously, yes, they have to park on the side of the road because there's construction going on. We see that all the time, even, roofers, you name it, any type of construction going on that makes total sense. But I see it outside of that all the time. So, and they park in info lots. So you'll see a lot of folks don't want to take up space in their own driveway. So they'll go park on the side of the road in the info lot next to them.
Well, also they know that there's no swale enforcement right on undeveloped info lights.
That is not true. We have 2 officers that start 2:00 in the morning on Thursdays and Fridays.
And so if you park in an unapproved lot with no swale, there's still code enforcement for swale violations.
Yes, there is. We're going to look up their license plate, and we're going to...
That wasn't the way it worked when I was a kid, because that's what we did specifically.
We've changed.
We went down 6 lots to the one that wasn't approved to park there.
No, it's enforced on unimproved lots.
Ms. Grossman, just since we're talking about businesses. So the way you guys do it right now is if you do cite someone parking in the swales, you cite where the car is registered, correct?
That is correct.
So
yes.
if you-
if we know that the vehicle is parked there and it belongs to 20 Cochise Court, 20 Cochise Court is being written.
That's because typically, or not typically, but because potentially someone is visiting the home, right? And it's not the homeowner that parked in the swale, it's somebody else. And I also see people, I've never practiced this, but I've seen people that they're going to a house down the street, to a party. There's no parking there, but they're going to park in the swale of a neighbor's yard. That neighbor doesn't want that car in their yard, but there's no, method for
And that's why you'll see breakaway reflectors, which are allowed because people don't want them in their
Right.
swale area because they're required by law, by code, that you're responsible to maintain to edge of pavement.
Right.
So if somebody's parking in my swale and I have a certificate of occupancy, that's where you see a lot of people. You can even see when they're going to advertise an estate sale or a garage sale. You see reflectors go up immediately.
Right.
So that my point was going to that with Vice Mayor Pontieri's question. So if you guys did go that route with commercial vehicles, it would be whoever that commercial vehicle is registered to, they would get the violation. So it may not be the driver; it would probably mostly be the owner of the company, right, Ms. Grossman? Am I saying that correctly?
If that's who's registered, and then they would be the violator. Yes.
I would think that would be typical that, if there's a work vehicle that's advertised for a business that's not owned by the driver, then it would be the business that's the register owner of that vehicle.
So Marcus, I think we may need to wordsmith the language a little bit about like designated attachments / storage, because it shouldn't be just stuff strapped to the side of the truck. It should be the truck should be designed or have the attachments that are designed for the vehicle, not just you can have
anything attached.
2 feet of shingles strapped
Right.
on
Thank
top
you,
of your
Mayor.
van.
Thank you, Mayor. That's exactly my concern, is that we're going to see things like that. And that's what I don't want. I want there to be, again, I want us to strike a very good balance of keeping things safe, not causing more litter. We see a lot of construction related litter. We just did the intercoastal waterway cleanup, and I was appalled at some of the things that I saw. So yeah, something like that. I think that's a great idea. Something that says it's a fix, something to that effect, to where we really are making sure that this change that we are intending still results in clean looking neighborhoods and safety.
So
I can work on that.
Okay.
I will forewarn you, I'm not going to be able to have language that does a catch-all. It's just
Okay,
with the amount of commercial stuff that can be on top of thing.
So if
Just be prepared for that.
How do you differentiate between a pipe and a packet of shingles, right? In terms of general wording, right?
So something along the lines, wordsmith it, something along the lines of design attachments / storage, safe. You got to add the word safe.
Yeah,
in there.
I got that noted.
That are safely secured. Yeah, some type of
Exactly.
language.
So when will this come to us for first
Hey, Mr.
reading?
Mayor.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Since we're at the end of this discussion, just so everybody knows, I've thought about this a lot, and I'm not going to be in favor of any changes to the current regulation, no matter what I think it's going to be too hard. You're going to create a new code that will force just as many problems into the future because people will be pushing the limits of whatever code we come up with. So my position now, we're not voting right now, is not to change the code.
All right, thank you, sir.
Should we consider banning commercial vehicles on short-term rentals?
Well, this is a problem that I see in whole with this is the terminology, and we've discussed this before. Commercial motor vehicles, as designated by Florida statute, are not allowed. Period. That's that hot shot, that bobtail that was in a driveway, that commercial truck. That the language is kind of murky. I don't think we should be using, because you're not. It's a truck or a van, but it's not really classified as a commercial motor vehicle, because it's like the 10th time I've said this. Commercial motor vehicles in the state of Florida are vehicles that are designated 26,000 pounds truck, tractor, trailer, semi combination 26,000 pounds and above. That's the way but so the language is kind of deceptive.
So, yeah, you are correct, Mr. Mayor. That is what a statute defines commercial motor vehicle that exceeds 26,000 pounds. But however, we're not preempted. So Palm Coast can come up with its own definition of a commercial vehicle.
Okay, all right, roger that.
And I guess my question is, if the owner of that home is not operating a business out of it, if they're merely renting out that home for vacation rental, whatever the case may be, should they be allowed to have a commercial vehicle parked in that driveway?
It is not. It should not be allowed. It is not allowed. It's just like any short-term rental can't have a trailer and can't have a boat. So it would be the same thing with a. Now, if it were the person that owns his home,
right,
and he has a vehicle there and it meets the code, it's not going to go away. If the long-term rental is next door to that, it's not going to go away. It's the short-term rental that will go away because it's prohibited.
Okay, so that's why. So we don't need to specify that. It's already taken care of. All right, I just want to make sure everybody's good. Thank you.
Are we good? Vice Mayor, you good?
I am. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, thank you, ma'am. All right, anything else from the council? Or you got what you need from us, Mr. Duffy? All right, we're going to open this up for public comment. Come on, Miss Chantel. I know she. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Dina Fullwood. I've lived in Palm Coast for 20 years now. My husband has a trailer that he has attached to his pickup truck that we have to pay storage for. And it's very time consuming. He's of an age right now where he can't lift his generators in and out of his truck. So he had to get the trailer. We're not allowed to keep it at the house. It costs us $150 a month for storage for this. That doesn't sound like a lot, but I'm on Social Security disability, and my medication for my breathing comes to $700 a month. So he's working, and he's not in great shape either, but he's working to support us. This extra fee that we have to pay, it hurts us. And it's easy to sit here and say we shouldn't let the Spectrum guy. These are workers. They're working for a living. They're not the business owners. They're not reaping all the rewards. This is what they're doing to feed their family. And I just think, safety-wise, I don't think you should have a trailer that's open with all sorts of lawn equipment because people could get hurt on that. But I think there should be some kind of concessions if you've got a small enough trailer, it's enclosed, and it's locked, and it's attached to the vehicle. My husband works 6 days a week, so it's not like he's just leaving it sitting there. It stays attached. Unfortunately, right now, it takes him a half hour to 40 minutes in the morning to attach this trailer, and then after working all day, he has to go back to the storage to unload this trailer. So I just think there should be certain things that are considered, because not everybody in Palm Coast is here retired and living. You know what I mean? We're here to make a living too. There's a lot of blue-collar workers, and we should take them into consideration.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you for your
Well,
time.
one quick question before Ms. Chantel gets up. How long is your husband's trailer?
It's Chantal. No, it's not. It's not very long. It could.
How tall is it?
It won't fit in our garage because we have a smaller home.
Mm-hmm.
So it will not fit. It would fit in the garage, except for it's taller.
It's too
But
tall for the garage.
it's completely enclosed. It's not higher than his truck.
But you don't know the length.
No, I'm sorry. I even think maybe if you guys want to do where we pay a yearly permit to have certain trailers. You know, we could even, and then they could be inspected to make sure that they are. I mean, his is all white. It's enclosed, good tires.
Yeah.
I mean, that might be a way to generate some money and allow people to live. It'd be cheaper.
All right, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Chantal Pröninger. Okay. I want to come back on the issue. Even if you decide not to let them park on the driveway, at least let them park in a backyard that is all fenced. You know, we should be able to do with our backyard what we want. put on our driveway what we want. If we have a small RV, this is our own property. If we have, let's say I have 5 kids, which is not the case, but imagine I have 5 kids and they all have a car. Where do they park if they live with me or they visit? At some point we have to park on the swells or on the grass. Now, you can't park on the grass because a neighbor calls the city and city enforcement comes. So that has to be changed. This is a city with people living in it. Okay, so let's go back to what I had prepared. Whatever you write on your car, and that was the issue, what if somebody puts something that is hateful? Well, I guess that would not last long before that car would have slashed tires. In Maryland, if you put a flag on your car, you need to change your tires after that. People have the way to deal with each other, you know. And also there's a danger in that, in a sense that what do you define as hateful? I mean, you could put a Bible verse and somebody says, oh, that's hateful. And here the code enforcement would come. So you have to be careful with that. And remember that the city is full of courageous people who work for a living. So I talked about pickups with a work logo. Yeah, that's very good. The swells. What's the logic about parking in your swell until 11 at night is okay, and after 6 in the morning is okay? On your own swell, I don't talk about somebody else, a pickup that's doing some work for your neighbors or something like that. But your own cars on your own swells. What's the logic behind that at some point is okay and some point is not? Because even during the day, if you park in it and it's raining, well, you have to deal with that yourself when you take your car out. Okay, so the small trailer's been dealt with. Yeah, also, if you have, let's say, pickup trucks, they're wider than a compact car by nature, so you need more space on your driveway sometimes. And I have a neighbor who wants to put, let's say, a yard of bricks or stones on each side just to accommodate the wheels, you know.
That's a separate issue. Thank you, Ms. Chantel. Anyone else for public comment? Ms. Barber, what is the city ordinance as far as parking in your backyard?
Parking on the lawn is prohibited.
I'm talking about in your backyard.
It's lawn. If they had, say for instance, I guess they would go to the zoning, but say for instance you wanted to, concrete to be able to put it in behind the fence, that might be allowed. But there's quite a few things. You can't block windows. You can't do certain things. So there's safety elements also involved.
I thought it was if it's not visible from the front of the house, if you have a small trailer, nobody can see it.
As far as code enforcement, I don't look over fences, I don't climb trees, and I don't get on roofs. If it can't be seen from the street, the right-of-way, then I don't write it.
Okay. And for you, ma'am, we're trying to make a compromise for working-class people. The trailer thing is a totally separate subject, really, at the time. So, yes, sir. What you have?
Yeah, I was just going to say in terms of what you were talking about with the backyard. So there's ordinance that covers it. It's not allowed. However, enforcement is difficult in areas where you can't see from the road.
That's correct. We would have to have an affidavit. If somebody were to complain about something, say it's a 2-story house next door, and they're upstairs and they can see downstairs, and they allow us in their house to see it with their permission, then we can see it because they're giving us an affidavit to see it. But if it's behind a fence and I'm looking at it from the road and I can't see it, then I'm not riding it. I'm not climbing up on the roof of a vehicle to look to see what's over the fence.
Right. I had that experience with a neighbor that had a non-maintained green pool, and there was no enforcement of it because there's a fence kind of in the way. Right?
If it can't be seen from the right of way, then code can't get involved in it unless we get permission from the next door neighbor or somebody to be able to go on to see it.
Thank you, ma'am. Anything else from the council? Vice Mayor, do you have any follow-ups?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Okay, you got the guidance you need, Mr. Duffy? Yes, sir. Okay, we're moving on. We're moving on to item 5, amending Chapter 50, Waterways Section. You're going to be up here all day, Miss Barbara. 5030, definition and creating a new section, 5033, anchoring.
Well, I still can say good morning. I got 5 minutes. Good morning, Mayor and City Council. Barbara Grossman, Code Enforcement Manager. This presentation will cover the proposed amendment to anchoring in the city's waterways. Topics for discussion will be the overview of the city's waterway, the proposed regulation, and the city's recommendation. In 2001, the city adopted Ordinance 2001-15 relating to restrictions of the waterways of Palm Coast. In 2008, the Unified Land Development Code was adopted, which does not allow docks prior to a primary structure on city waterways, Section 401.05A1, docks. Liveaboard vessels were not allowed either, Section 416.2B, marinas, due to the health, safety, and welfare of the residents and the waterways. The code was brought from the residents which were living on vessels without primary structures and then abandoned and putting the primary structure. The disposal of waste was a concern. The city does not allow a seawall to be built prior to a primary structure to prevent erosion from occurring. In 2024, complaints were received from residents along the waterways regarding live-on-board vessels in the city waterways. Staff reviewed the code, and it was determined the code needed to be updated. The proposed change will align with municipalities and the waterway regulations. The proposed ordinance provides for a new definition relating to the city's waterway regulations limiting the anchoring and obstructing of city waterways. This is actually out there right now on the basin. Definitions include anchorage and canals. So the definition would be anchorage means using a device that is attached to a vessel by means of cables, ground tackle, or other devices designed to attach the vessel, securing it to the submerged lands and keep the vessel from drifting. Canals shall mean those waterways within the city which are not a part of the intercoastal waterway. Liveaboard vessels mean any vessel used solely as a resident and not for navigation. Any vessel represented as a place of business or professional or other commercial enterprise. And any vessel which for declaration of does it, when do I want to say that? Yeah, thank you. Has been filed pursuant to Florida Statute 222.17. A commercial fishing boat is expressly excluded from the term liveaboard vessel. Mooring shall mean any permanent structure to which a seaborne vessel may be secured. Obstructing waterways, it shall be unlawful for any person to place any obstruction of any kind whatsoever in any of the canals, waterways, or ditches in the city of Palm Coast. Vessels shall mean every description of self-propelled watercraft used or capable of being used in the means of transportation on water, including all types of boats and all uses thereof. Vessels shall also be defined as it's defined in Florida Statute 327. Waterways in the city shall mean the lakes, ponds, impoundments, streams, canals, and other natural and man-made body of waterway, or any tributary that bodies of water located within the defined city limits of Palm Coast. Adding this section of anchoring, Section 5033, anchoring in the city of Palm Coast canals and waterways, including but not limited to freshwater and saltwater canals, is hereby prohibited, as listed below. Anchorage of liveaboard vessels within the city of Palm Coast waterways, the anchorage of liveaboard vessels within the waters located in municipal boundaries of the city is strictly prohibited 7 days at 24 hours per day. Liveaboard vessels means any vessel used solely for the residents and not for navigation. Any vessel represented at this place of business or professional or other commercial enterprise. Any vessel for which a declaration of has been filed pursuant to Florida Statute 22217. A commercial fishing boat, again, is excluded in the term liveaboard vessel. Okay, and this is the last section of the anchoring. And our recommendation is, as you can see, the reasoning behind this is we have a vessel right now that is anchored out in the second cut, and they are living abroad. They're living on the boat. So we need an ordinance. It's not so much that, I belong to 3 boat clubs. You go out and you anchor out and you have a good time, and then you go home and you take your boat and you put it to the dock. These people have 2 children and 2 adults, and they're living on the vessel in our canal.
And they don't live at a residence where the
That's
boat is
correct.
being
They do
anchored.
not.
There's squatters on the water.
Squatters in the water.
Yeah, and so this type of behavior is typical in waterways that are broader, larger, that have more natural mooring locations, things like that. But our private our private canals are meant for navigation from the canal homes to the intercoastal waterway. They're not meant for this type of activity, so to speak.
Correct. The mooring.
That's my feelings on it.
Anything else from the council? And this will come back to us for first read?
Yes.
Okay.
One item. The only place I saw emergency mentioned was in section 5032. It says the section shall not apply to maintenance vessels in the case of an emergency. So it seems like we're only saying in cases of emergency, maintenance vessels can operate or anchor or whatever they have to do. I could see a situation where someone taking relief from a flood or a hurricane or something like that might, for reasons of life and death, want to move into the canal and anchor in there for a short period of time. And I mentioned that to Marcus. Did you look at that at all?
Yeah, so when we talked yesterday, I looked at it again today. So this is only applying to vessels that are being used as what it defines, any vessel using solely as a resident, not for navigation, any vessel represented as a place of business, any vessel which has a declaration of domicile, meaning that they're pretty much using it as a residence, or a commercial fishing boat is expressly excluded. So in your example, if someone has to come in for an emergency situation, they would not be excluded under this, as long as they're not using it as a home resident vessel.
Correct.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to
As
make
long,
sure.
it's just not going to be a resident. That's what we're trying to do.
So this is to keep people, say someone has a houseboat and they just anchor up in the middle of one of our main canals. And say, I'm going to live here now.
Yeah, we don't want that.
We don't
That's
want
what's
that.
happening, essentially.
Yes, that's what's happening.
We don't want that. So,
We don't
okay.
want that.
All right. Any follow-ups from the council? Vice Mayor, you have any input?
I think the Vice Mayor had something.
I do not. Thank you, Mayor.
Yes.
She said, nothing from her. We're going to open it up for public comment. Anyone for public comment? Miss Chantel, come on now. You got something to say about boats out in the canal?
Yes, I do.
Yes, ma'am.
Chantal Prelinger. Okay, what if those people are living in the boat because that's all they can afford? Would you rather have them in the street?
That's it?
That's it?
All right, thank you, ma'am. Yeah, they can go out. They can go out to the main canal, the actual intracoastal, and anchor up out there. Not
Go to St. Augustine.
Yeah, there's anchorage fields in St. Augustine. There's
Anchorage in St.
There's
Augustine.
alternative locations if in that scenario that are more appropriate than kind of a canal that's a travel way in and out of the city.
say up at Matanzas Inlet by the fort. It all depends on season. People will be coming north and south, and as they're coming north and south, if they need a place to anchor up to sleep overnight, they pull into that channel, and they anchor up off on the side. And even out on the main intracoastal, there's boats out there all the time that anchor up overnight. It's just to keep people from squatting in our city. and the intracoastal is a separate animal. So anything else from the council? Okay, you got the direction you need, Miss Barbara?
I do,
Mr.
thank you.
Duffy? Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Okay, we're moving on to discussion 6. Ms. Fuller? Was everybody able to access those videos? I know. I think that was an issue for some. Yeah,
I had a problem.
I think Miss Johnson sent out something earlier. I had some issues. I had to get in touch with Doug to be able to get into VPN to be able to observe them. So, do we have the data we need as a council to move forward, or we're still stuck?
Yeah, I still haven't reviewed the videos.
Okay. What about you, Vice Mayor? Were you able to access the videos?
I had some difficulties as well, but I was able to watch them.
There was quite a few people that didn't even submit, right?
That's correct. We were down to 7, I believe, right? 7 of the 12.
That's correct.
Well, 7 and 1 late submitter didn't meet the deadline.
6 submitted on time.
Okay, Ms. Fuller, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, Mayor, City Council, Renina Fuller, Director of Human Resources. I have Ashley Finner here with me today. We do not have a presentation. We're here to get your guidance on how you want to move forward, either with narrowing down the candidates more or moving forward in the interview process.
Okay, so how many do we still have?
So we had, out of the 12 applicants, we had 3 withdraw, 2 did not respond, 6 submitted on time, and 1 was late.
So we have 7.
Correct.
Okay.
I have some initial thoughts, Mr. Mayor, whatever.
Yep. Go right ahead.
Okay. So after reviewing all the videos, my recommendation is to slim down to 4, and my recommendation is Mr. Norm West, Mr. Anthony Shembri, Mr. Michael McLaughlin, and Mr. Is it Frazier? David Frazier. Just some observations. And again, going back to the 2 that I kind of focused on before, I thought Mr. West did a good job in directly answering the questions. You can tell that he has proven experience as an executive, without a doubt. He's led massive budgets through transformational change, which I think is something that comports well with our city, as we have, a $697 million budget, and we're moving through all sorts of different things. But really, he hit it out of the park in my book. By the way, his home of record for the last 20 years while he was on active duty was in the R section of Palm Coast, and he lives within our community. So I know, Mr. Mayor, you were concerned about relocation packages and incentives or, just costs to bring people in for interview. This guy is a proven executive, and he lives right here in our community. So that really jumped out at me. And Mr. Anthony Shembri as well has a ton of experience. Really talked about how training was a priority for him in developing an organization, and the coaching and mentoring that goes along with it. Again, he's been appointed by 3 different positions by 3 different governors, and just brings a wealth of experience. And then Michael McLaughlin and Mr. Frazier, they have city manager experience, but I think those 4 individuals are worth moving forward and bringing them in for us to meet in person and have a discussion for our community to also meet with them.
So just in the interest of, I know Councilman Sullivan said that he hadn't gotten a chance to review the videos due to technical difficulties. How do we want to, instead of us advocating for our 4 or however many, how do we want to slim this down and then still give Councilman Sullivan the time to review those and give his input as well? What is everybody's thoughts on that?
If I may, I was going to suggest that for the 7 that submitted videos, that we go to the next step with those. I didn't see anything in the videos that was, I didn't see any red flags. I thought that everybody did a really good job, quite frankly. I thought there was quite a diversity of perspective on some things. There were definitely some stylistic differences, but, I really thought that everybody did a good job. We started with, I think, 110 or 112 applications. We can narrow it down to the 7 that submitted videos. That would give Councilman Sullivan an opportunity to watch the videos. But I really would like to get a little bit more out of each one of these folks, because I really enjoyed listening to them. I thought there were some really good ideas. But there's nothing that I saw that in my mind really justifies eliminating any of them.
Okay, so we hold on to the 7. What should be our next step, Ms. Fuller?
Well, I do have one issue, and is that the one individual that submitted their video in late. I mean, we're hiring an executive, okay? And if they can't meet a deadline, to me, that's a problem. And so, if you want to go with the 6, I'm good with it. But I have a real issue with somebody not hitting a simple deadline.
Who was that? And do we know the circumstances of the late submission?
Howard Brown. I don't know that. And actually, did you reach out to him repeatedly?
I did, sir. I left him a voicemail and sent multiple emails.
Yeah, that's a problem.
I'm not terribly offended by eliminating Mr. Brown. I thought he was very personable. I thought he had some good high level responses, but that he did lack some detail. So if the consensus of council is to eliminate him based on what everybody else saw and the fact that his submission was late, you have my consensus on that decision.
You good with that?
I'm good with that.
You good with that?
I'm good with the 6.
Okay, so we got 6. What do you want us to do next, Ms. Fuller?
It's at your pleasure. We can come back to another workshop or the next business meeting with our Google searches, social media checks, and our their local and our local city, county court records. You can have them write a white paper, or we can schedule to bring them in.
Okay, council, what do you want to do?
I'm going to do a white paper on, what their first year looks like, something like that.
Or have them come here and present it. Yeah.
If we're going to have them come here, then we got to make that final decision when they're,
I think I have one more cut.
What? You want one more cut?
Before they show up.
One more cut before we have them in person. Submit a white paper.
Vice Mayor, what do you think about that? The white paper about what their first year looks like, something to that effect. Do you have any input on that?
Yeah, I think a white paper and maybe that background check that we talked about, the social media search. Let's go ahead and get that workup done. I mean, 4 of these guys are right here in Florida. So it's not like, we're flying them across the country. So I don't think it would be a really big deal to bring them in. But that being said, I think that, we should probably do those background checks, those social media checks.
Yeah.
And
sure.
I think a white paper not exceeding probably 2 pages on their first year in the position, I think that's a great idea to kind of see where their head's at for our city.
Okay, so when would be the next time? How much time between to get all that done, the background checks and the white paper? When do you see us in the next, where you put us at, Ms. Fuller? City manager?
We could possibly do the first workshop in October.
The first workshop in October is October 14th. So we would have the information
That's
to you by
plenty
the 9th, October 9th.
That's plenty enough time.
Yeah, as far as the white paper, they don't need a lot of time to do that, in my opinion. It's just the administrative work of the background checks that.
We want to put a limit on the paper.
Besides, I think the Vice Mayor suggested 2 pages.
You said 2 pages, Vice Mayor?
I think 2 pages should be sufficient.
Okay, so 2 pages, white paper, the first year of the city under your direction, and the background checks, social media, Google search, court records, all that. So you got the direction you need, Ms. Fuller.
Yes. Is it on the first 90 days that you want the paper, or the first year?
First year, first 9 days. You said first year, right? First year.
Okay, and just leaning forward just a little bit, because they'll probably ask us, since this is the last cut before you bring them in for final interviews.
Yes.
Did you have a target date of when you were wanting to get that done? Are you wanting it to be, because, there's, if they're local, they've got to make arrangements and et cetera. We need to help with securing a hotel or anything like that. If you had a targeted time frame in which you'd like to conduct this between, city council's travel plans?
could we set up a special workshop early November?
Sure.
Because we can't, the one on here is canceled for Veterans Day.
Correct.
Could we do one sometime in that week, maybe later in the week, Thursday or?
Sure.
Okay.
Thanksgiving.
Well, this is Veterans Day. This is early in the month.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So everybody's.
Before Thanksgiving.
If I may, Mayor, I'm actually in a jury trial the first week of November, so I will be out of pocket. So if we can just make sure we don't schedule it during that first week.
Vice Mayor, this would be November 10th through the 14th, specifically looking at November 13th.
Let me, I know my trial calendar is quite busy, so if you all just give me a moment. That should be fine. Thank you.
Okay. We good?
We're good?
Wait, just one clarification. So October 9th is when the white paper is due. Back. Is that what you gave?
That's the workshop we
So
designate.
we will probably have it due on the 8th, and then we will send it to the council on the 9th. That way they have until the 14th, right? That's
Okay.
typically when the agenda is released.
Okay. So they need to have it back by the 8th.
Correct.
Okay.
All right. So we good, Ms. Fuller?
Absolutely, sir.
Has it been challenging?
It's been fun.
Well, that's all we can ask for. Keep you challenged. Okay. Do I need to open this up for public discussion, Marcus? Okay. We're going to move on to our final public participation. Anyone else? Ms. Chantel, what you got to say? Seeing no one come. Sir, did you have something? Public comment? Yes, sir.
Already, good morning or good afternoon, Mayor and City Council. So my presence here today is one of concern.
Hey, sir, can you just state your name?
Yeah, so my name's Andrew. I live in Palm Coast. Like I said, I'm here on an issue of concern that I have. Obviously, everybody knows about what happened with the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and I think obviously everybody would agree that this is a time to grieve and to condemn violence. However, something disturbed me. That was not the avenue that a local blogger recently took to cover this story. He chose attacks and demonization. And let me remind you that this guy, had just been killed, and our taxpayer dollars are going to market through this blog. So he made a lot of slurs toward Mr. Kirk, which I find highly offensive. He called his faith anti-Semitic, and if you're wondering what he's referring to as far as Mr. Kirk being anti-Semitic, it's Christianity. So, as a Christian, I take offense to that, and I just think there's no time to be, making those kind of claims after a man was killed and shot. And it got worse from there. He connects Charlie Kirk to a group that Charlie had no affiliation with. He connected him it was more of an extremist group, I guess, to create fear. Then he interviews a local organization and was talking to them about how they might feel and how they're afraid, creating more fear in the community. To me, this is extreme and divisive rhetoric. I don't think there's a place for our city to be connected with talk like this. I support his First Amendment. I support all of our First Amendment. I support his right to say everything that he wants to say on his blog. Attack me if he wants to, attack all of you, attack anyone in the community. I totally support him doing that. I totally support the freedom of the press. However, I do not support my tax dollars going towards this. Now, you guys have a choice today. I had a choice not come in today or come in today. I came in today to talk to you guys. You have a choice to either do nothing. But if you, like me, are concerned about our tax dollars being connected to this type of divisive rhetoric, then I'm asking my District 3 representative, if you disagree with this kind of our connection with this type of rhetoric, I'm asking my District 3 representative to make a motion to discontinue and disentangle our city's message, which is one of unity for our city, and our tax dollars from this platform. So I'll leave that into your hands, and I hope you guys have a great day. It's good to see a lot of you guys.
Thank you, Andrew. You don't look the same, brother. What happened? Your hair got shorter, the beard.
I got older.
Campaigning ages you, don't it?
I think it does. Yeah. No. Good to see you guys. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else for public comment? Yes, sir.
Good afternoon. My name is Neftali De Jesus. I own 1621 Building Remodeling, also Florida Green Building Construction, and I'm the Executive Secretary of the Home Builders Association. So I was sitting in the HBA office listening to the live stream with Anna Maria, and we saw the questions that Vice Mayor Panieri brought up about dealing with unlicensed contracting. Heard Mr. Luis Menendez's responses, and everything that was stated is true. Problem is it's only part of the story. Mr. Menendez, he is passionate about his job. He wants to enforce unlicensed contracting. He does give that information to the county, but he has absolutely zero enforcement power. Zero. All he can do is give recommendations to the county. The county has very little enforcement power. The county only has the ability to fine those subjects. The fines are very minimal. They're $100, $200, which as a contractor isn't very much of an influence to deter unlicensed contracting. That information then, once the county review board determines that is indeed unlicensed contracting, they then present the information to DBPR. DBPR is vastly overwhelmed with the amount of unlicensed contracting in the state of Florida. And this sting operation that was brought up where 4 people were arrested, 4 of 45 identified unlicensed contractors were arrested. Now, in my past, I was a police detective. Those numbers aren't so good. My chief would be pretty mad about those numbers. It's a start, and it's a great start, but it is not the completion. The problem that we're running into is that although you have city officials that's their job, Luis Menendez is a great guy. He's a former detective himself up in New York. I've sat in his office several times and worked with him. Great gentleman, has no power. The county has very little power, and only the person that has power is DBPR, which are vastly overwhelmed. Now, I don't know if you all realize that unlicensed contracting is a felony in the state of Florida. I have 2 general contracting licenses to cover both my businesses. I do everything correctly. I pull the permits. I deal with y'all's inspectors and all the processes. I do everything correctly. I have been beaten out just in the last 2 months on 16 jobs by unlicensed contractors. 16. Because my price is more expensive because I do things the right way. I'm not sure what the answer is, but we need to give Mr. Menendez a little bit of teeth and some ability. Is there any questions? Because I can answer anything on this matter.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Anyone else for public comment? Seeing no one come forward, we'll bring it back to the dais. Any follow-ups? Vice Mayor, you got anything?
Just 2 follow-ups, if I may. Can we just, and it doesn't have to be a full presentation, but maybe something sent to us from Barbara or Mr. Menendez about the fines, penalties, kind of process just for the unlicensed contracting piece of enforcement. And then I would also just like to see what type, I didn't read whatever article Andrew was speaking about with regards to Flagler Live. I'm assuming Flagler Live is what he's referring to. I didn't read that or hear that. I don't know what he's referring to. I will try to take a look, but in the meantime, I don't know what type of money the city spends, what type of advertising we do, if it's online, if it's, as a part of the articles. So any information that city manager can provide to us in that regard, he asked us to take action, and I just, I'm not prepared to take any action like that without having more information.
Yeah, I started reading the article, and I got probably 500 words into the blah, 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 which is usually typical with Pierre's writings. So, but when I did go back and I looked down a little bit further, I'm like, man, it's just typical Pierre and his blog. It's a blog. He can say he's media all he wants. He's not a publication. He's not a newspaper. He is a blogger. It's like having Sean Hannity write for your city. So, city manager, how much money do we designate that goes to any type of advertising on that blog?
I'd have to look that up for you and get that number.
Do we advertise with him?
Yes, we advertise on a broad spectrum with all of our different advertising partners. Brittany just said that this year was around $6,000. We're trying to make sure that we're reaching as much people with a broader audience, and our advertising doesn't imply we're in agreement or endorsing any editorial content produced by any of these outlets, such as Palm Coast Observer, WNZF. We advertise all across our channels.
Yeah, but his is not, as far as I know, it's just, he may have some people that he fronts as an editorial board. No one edits what he writes. And some of the stuff, he has actually made derogatory comments about a birth defect that I have, about my lazy eye. This is how bad he is. It's the truth according to Pierre. He leaves out facts. He nitpicks. And I think he's bad for our community. Some of his information I take with a grain of salt. Once you weed through all the crap that he's writing, and then you can get down to some of the numbers and the facts and stuff. That's fine. But I think it's a bad look for our community. What did you have?
Yeah, Andrew did send me an email on that, and I did ask Brittany to explain what we were doing as far as advertising. And she provided an answer to me, and I did go back to Andrew and say, based on that answer, I don't think what we're doing is harmful because we're trying to get our word out of what we're doing at the city and as large an audience as problem. But I will say this, the article that was in Flagler Live concerning Charlie Kirk was a disgraceful article.
Yes.
It's called what it's called is projection. In other words, he didn't have a lot of specific bad things to say about Charlie Kirk, but there's a whole bunch of other people in the world that he doesn't like. And then he equates, so that's projection. He equates Charlie with all those other things. And it was a horrendous article to write at the time. And I agree with all that side. I don't agree with just not advertising where we get out to as many people as we possibly can on use of our system. But that particular blog does create some significant problems here in the city.
Yes.
And we've gone through this before in the county. I've gone through with 10 years, and usually you do a little more damage by making a big deal about it or doing something officially here that probably will not do much good either way.
Well, I believe in the freedom of press and the freedom of speech. But as we've been learning in the last week or so, we don't have to spend money with that organization or anything like that if we don't have to. And there's plenty of mediums out there, and I follow Flagler Live, and because like I said, some of his stuff, some of the information is factual, but when it gets down to his opinion and what he feels, his view of the world is, to me, it's garbage. Do you have anything? Councilman Gambaro?
Not on this topic. I'll have closing comments.
Okay.
Whenever you're ready to move to that.
Anything? Can we get numbers on that specifically? And we can come up, and if someone wants to make a motion to not patronize his business, I have no problem with it.
If I may just jump in here, because this was brought up by Councilman Danko. I don't know if it was last year or the year before, I can't recall, but we did look at numbers at one point, and love it or hate it, the medium does reach a lot of people. So to the extent we are trying to reach all members of our community, and I think we are,
I don't know that we should not advertise based on not agreeing with a viewpoint. I just want to, and listen, and Pierre is very aware of this. We disagree on a ton of things. That is 100% factual. We've had conversations about it. Again, I haven't read this specific article, but my concern is what I oftentimes voice, and that the pendulum always swings to the other side. So to the extent there are other people in our seats later on who have different viewpoints than us, if they decide to not advertise with something that we may read in the future, and now we're not getting access to our government information that we think we should get access to because they don't agree with our viewpoint, I think that is a bad policy decision. If the reach weren't there, in other words, if we were paying $6,000 and the ROI were not there, I would say 100% pull the funding. But that's not based on the content. That's based on the fact that there's no ROI. So I think, if it were an incredible amount of money, which it's not, it would probably be a different discussion. If it weren't reaching a lot of people, which it is, I think it would be a different discussion. Again, I'm happy to look at the numbers again. We have done this in the past. The money has proven to be useful in that it is reaching a lot of people. And I would just caution council even though we are, I know I've been a vocal Republican. I'm proud of that fact. And I think we have a conservative board. We do need to be reaching every member of our community with our government news and information. So again, happy to look at the numbers, but I would just caution council as we move forward in this regard.
Yep. I have never considered Flagler Live, the media. He is a blogger. It's all opinion. Like I said, he may have some people on there that he says are his editorial board, but you have to go, who is his editor? Who says, hey, Pierre, stop. You can't write that. That's not appropriate. He has no editor. No one's editing newspapers are set up a specific way. Same way with newscasts. They're set up a certain way. He does not function like that. And to me personally, I think he hides behind the nonprofit also. So you're not a nonprofit. Where is the profit going? Are you feeding your family with it? Are you pledging that money to charities? Where is the money going? And
Mr. Mayor, I would advise you to move on.
Okay. All right. I'm just saying that's just my personal opinion.
Just to add to the discussion, so I didn't read the article in question, so I'm not sure exactly what was said. I trust that you guys saying that it was inappropriate is correct, and because we probably align on those ideals. I do, like the Vice Mayor, just caution, not wanting to work with someone for advertising based on the content is somewhat incompatible with Charlie's ideals in a way. He would rather have that conversation with them and be out in the front talking, not censoring people, not telling them they can't speak, things like that. And I know we're not censoring, but we're just withholding advertisement dollars. But in a sense, it's the same thing. So my view is that when someone has a disagreement with you that's so incompatible that there's no conversation to be had, then ignore them and move on. And it is true that we're trying to make sure we are advertising our events and things like that, the information that we need to get out. We have public notice requirements and things like that as well that require us to advertise with people. And I don't think those things are endorsing or licensing the content of it. Just like, we may disagree with CNN, but there's probably plenty of businesses owned by conservative people that advertise with CNN, because they're trying to reach the audience and not co-signing the message, so to speak. That's just my thoughts on it. It's hard to get into that portion where we're making decisions based on our opinion about other people's opinions. And then, where does that stop? Because, it could be somebody else up here making that same decision about you at some point in the future. So I'd rather set a standard of just being kind of in the middle about those things.
All right. Any further discussion on that? That was public participation. Matters of the city council not on the agenda. Anyone Mr. Gambaro, you said you had something?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to just report back on the noticed meeting with the Ralph Carter Park residents. We had more than just Ms. Petruzzi there, and had a good discussion with Mr. Hurst as well. And so what we're trying to do here again is try to find an alternative that where Mad Dogs can still play and where the residents could have the lights either turned off or reduced or moved somewhere else. We stood on the corner of Rickenbacker and Richardson, and from that location, and the foliage really hasn't even started to fall. It's not okay. And so the proposed way ahead, and I'd like consensus from the council to look at the different options, is that there's some other fields within our school district that are not being used, and there may be a pathway to access those fields in a way that we would have to update our interlocal agreement with the school district. But there's a possibility that James is investigating and looking into to see how that could be a win-win, a win for the residents and also a win for our sports leagues. So I just wanted to report back on that. Councilman Miller was able to join us out there, given that it was a noticed meeting, and but just like consensus from the council to take a look at those options going forward.
Anything? Anyone agree?
I would just caution City Council that those items aren't budgeted, so we can investigate and put forward a report for in the future when the budget comes back around again. But for your fiscal year 26 budget, unless we're going to reprioritize projects, then we do not have any funding for improving any field conditions or anything like that.
We can explore it, though. I have no problem with that.
I feel that we've already made a decision on that. I was unable to get out there the other night for that meeting, so I'm not going to agree to anything until I have a chance to get out there on my own to take a look at what the lights mean. But at this point, I'm willing to stick with the decision we've made.
Vice Mayor Pontieri?
No, I'm sticking with the decision that's been made a few times now, letting them continue to play at Ralph Carter Park. We put in a lot of money to make those lights more pleasing to the residents in that area. We also put in a lot of money to make the fields safe, which is my primary concern for the children to play on. We have leagues that are working really hard to keep their parents in compliance with our rules. We've worked with Flagler County Sheriff's Office. Our Parks and Rec staff has really drilled down on some policies to keep that area safe and traffic clear during game days. There's been a lot that's been put into allowing these leagues to operate in a safe and really efficient way. So I'm with Councilman Sullivan on this. I'd like to keep the decision as is. To the extent we are able to improve fields in the future based on our CIP and based on any public-private partnerships that we're able to engage in from an economic development standpoint in the future that would allow for more fields. Obviously, I would be in favor of exploring it, but at this time, I'm not willing to make any changes to the usage of Ralph Carter Park.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Anything else? You got anything, Mr. Miller?
Yeah, I was just going to add to that conversation. I'm okay with exploring alternatives. Obviously we've discussed what it was, and during that conversation out there, I said the only way this changes is a viable alternative. So I'm okay with exploring alternatives. Again, as mentioned, not budgeted, so we'd have to take from something else to do something immediate, which I'm not really in favor of as well. But knowing that there's an alternative, whether it takes buy-in from Flagler schools and things like that, that has to happen too, obviously, and it makes it exponentially harder when you have to convince two boards to do things versus one. Similar to kind of the beaches and things like that, we see the difficulty involved in getting a lot of different boards on board with the same direction. So again, on board with looking at alternatives, but we'd have to see what those are before we could make any actual decision.
That's all I'm asking for is looking at an alternative to see if it's a win-win, especially when there's been, concerns about light pollution on the golf course. Well, what about light pollution in people's neighborhood? Do we, let's not have a double standard. But okay, thank you for the consensus.
No, I agree. I have no problem if the city manager can have whatever we have to do to explore alternatives whenever we get it.
I have a meeting set up with Ms. Moore, the superintendent, on Wednesday next week, and I'll bring it up to her attention.
All right, thank you.
And I think that just further highlights, I think that the vice mayor is kind of keying on this as well, is in the future, this has to be a priority of ours because it will always be a conflict point within the city until we get more fields for our kids to play youth sports.
Absolutely.
As far as other comments, I went
Was that all you had, Ken?
That's all I had. I just wanted to ask for consensus. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah. Go right ahead.
Went to TPO last week as well. So the TPO adopted the long range transportation plan and the cost feasible element of that. And so looking forward to kind of seeing where that the list of priority projects goes from there in terms of what's important to Palm Coast in specific. And also Flagler County. There's some trails, bikes, bike paths, things like that, as well as several major roadways that are part of that list. So just looking forward to seeing where we fall on that and where we can anticipate some funding to get some things done in the near future, hopefully. Also, just wanted to mention I'm very thankful that it is a bye week this week.
I'm sure you are.
You can't, from what I know, I mean, though we might try to do it, you can't really lose a bye week, but
Councilman Sullivan.
Nothing else.
Vice Mayor, you got any final words?
I do very quickly. We had quite a bit of good news come out of our fire department. There was a news release on this, so thank you, Ms. Kershaw, for doing this. But I did just want to highlight a few things. We had several life-saving awards from our fire department, 6 CPR life-saving awards. And I point these out because we do get some criticism that our department has rescues in its fleet, even though we don't transport. But these life-saving awards are the exact reason why we have rescues. And I think it's really important to highlight these members of our fire department. So we have the following lieutenants: Janelle Stewart, Anthony Peterson, Daniel Hackney twice, Robert Ballou, and Lieutenant Jeff Nunziato. Those are all lieutenants who receive life-saving awards. Driver engineers: Sean McBride, Anthony Forte, Brandon Davis, Mark Davidson, another for Brandon Davis, and Brandon O'Hara. Those are our driver engineers with life-saving awards. And then firefighters: firefighter Cameron Cena, Aaron Walsh, Zane Smith, another for Aaron Walsh, and Joshua Gilliam. So I just want to thank those very valued members of our fire department for their hard work and for saving at least 6 folks in our community.
All right, thank you, ma'am. I have nothing. City Attorney? Nothing to the City Attorney, City Manager?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I don't know, Mayor, City Council, if you saw that our Palm Coast Flagler Health Alliance, one of the founding members, Nelson, passed away this recently. He's been a community advocate and coming to council a couple of times. So just prayers to his family. Really strong supporter of his. And just as a reminder, we have the final budget hearing tomorrow at 5:15 p.m.
5:15 tomorrow, final budget. Look at Helena's back there. I'm done. And I'll just start the next one.
Yeah, you can just stare at all of the time.
Okay, anything else?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you.